Chapter 51. Thomas didn't care about that. He took out his wand, pointed it at Voldemort and fired an avatar. Dark green light instantly burst out from the tip of Thomas's staff and hit Voldemort. Voldemort, who was originally smiling and chatting, suddenly showed a look of horror on his face. No, how is this possible? With the last sound, Voldemort completely disappeared in the Chamber of Secrets. The villain dies because he talks too much, the ancients were right. Thomas smiled, put away his wand, and pulled Harry and Ronald up from the ground. Solved. Oh my god, Thomas, you actually defeated the mysterious man. Ronald said excitedly. That's awesome, Thomas, cool. Harry on the side also gave a thumbs up. Just as everyone was cheering, a roaring black mist suddenly rose from the ashes and rushed towards Harley. Damn it, get out of the way, Harley. Thomas pushed Harley away and avoided the first attack of the black fog. Thomas Blake. Expecto Patronus. The next second, the tip of Thomas's staff burst out with a violent green light again, eventually forming a dark green dragon, which roared at the black fog, and then the two collided with each other. Eventually it vanished into nothing and dissipated into the air. After casting the Patronus spell, Thomas's face turned visibly paler. The Patronus charm in the wizarding world is generally a high difficulty spell. What everyone summons are basically animals such as rabbits and puppies. Only a few people can summon such powerful creatures. But everything in the world is balanced, and the amount of magic required to summon powerful creatures is naturally an extremely terrifying number. That move just now directly cleared half of Thomas's blue bar. Are you okay, Thomas? Are you okay? Harry and Ronald quickly helped Thomas up, one on each side, and asked with concern. I'm fine, thank you, Harry and Ronald. It seems that I missed a wonderful duel. A soft voice sounded, and the three of them turned around hurriedly. They saw another old man in a purple robe appear at the door, and it was Dumbledore. Principal Dumbledore. Godfather. You did great, Thomas. Dumbledore smiled and rubbed Thomas's head before speaking. Ronald and Harry were shocked. Although they had seen the report in the Daily Prophet that Dumbledore had adopted Thomas as his godson, they were still shocked to see the scene appearing right in front of them. Okay, kids, you all did a great job. Everything that just happened has proven your bravery and wisdom. But, shouldn't we go back and rest now? After all, your good friend's current situation is not so good. Dumbledore smiled and winked. Ah, yes, Headmaster Dumbledore, let's get Thomas to the infirmary now. That's right, Thomas needs a break. Thomas looked at the anxious expressions of Ronald and Harley beside him and shook his head helplessly. He knew the current situation. Although he looked pale now, the magic power in his body was about a quarter of the amount. But now, since his godfather had said so, he couldn't refute it, so he just went along with Harry and Ronald's wishes. Slowly, as people from Hogwarts continued to return to school, the castle became lively again, and everyone learned about an earth-shattering event. Thomas Black defeated Voldemort. Although Harley and Ronald also participated in this incident, they were not so eye-catching in this story. This incident brought Thomas's reputation among students to an astonishing level. The craziest ones are Slytherin. Many students who originally admired Thomas Black have now turned from admiration to fanaticism. Every day, whenever Thomas had free time, he would be surrounded by many students, and the love letters he received were counted by the boxes. Although Ronald and Harley were envious of Thomas's popularity, they did not feel jealous at all. They both knew the situation in the Chamber of Secrets very well. From the three-headed dog in the beginning to the final showdown with Voldemort, it was basically Thomas driving the Wushuan alone to push through it. Even the cool storytelling doesn't dare to write like this. However, since they were also participants in this incident and knew the content and details, many students gathered around them every day to listen to them explain Thomas's wonderful moments. Among the students listening to the story was Malfoy. Oh my god, is this true, Pot? Of course, Malfoy, Thomas is your cousin, you can go to him if you don't believe me. Harry spread his hands helplessly and spoke. Ah, why, I didn't come to Hogwarts earlier, I really wanted to be with you guys. Malfoy said with a painful look on his face that he did not participate in such a prominent event. The more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. On the other side, Thomas looked at the many senior sisters with crazy faces, sighed helplessly, and left the subsequent trouble to Daphne. After all, she has always handled it well. After returning to the dormitory, Thomas was about to lie down and have a good rest when he suddenly discovered that a square gift box had appeared on the side of his bedside table. A gift? Who could have sent it? Thomas opened the gift box on the bed with curiosity. A red gem with a strange shape was lying quietly in the box. For a moment, Thomas felt his breathing become rapid. This is the Philosopher's Stone. After Thomas took the Philosopher's Stone out of the box, he found a small note underneath the stone. It says, "Merry Christmas." Needless to say, this was the Christmas present Dumbledore had given him. This is truly a worthwhile investment. At night, the cafeteria was already full of students, and the sky was filled with emerald green silk flags embroidered with python patterns, which was the symbol of Slytherin. And today is also the annual College Cup Awards ceremony. Dumbledore turned and gave Professor McGonagall a look, and Professor McGonagall immediately understood. Accompanied by the clinking sound of the iron spoon hitting the silver cup, the originally messy hall also became quiet. Dumbledore looked at the scene, nodded in satisfaction, then stood up and said, "Another new year has passed." Chapter 52. Now, it's time to present the House Cup again. The scores are as follows: Gryffindor House has 324 points. As Dumbledore finished his words, there was a round of applause from the Gryffindor House, but everyone's face looked unhappy. Gryffindor House has been at the bottom of the class for many years, and this has become a normal thing. However, when the scores are really announced, everyone will inevitably feel a little disappointed. Third place, Hufflepuff Academy, 347 points. Then, the Badgers burst into applause. They did not care as much about the score of the House Cup as Gryffindor did. Instead, they cared more about the delicious food on the table. After all, in their eyes, only food is not to be missed. Second place, Ravenclaw Academy, 424 points. Hearing this, the young Eagles who had always been the runner-up applauded consciously, but they did not feel unconvinced like in previous years, as Thomas's learning ability had always been noticed by everyone. Sometimes, many young Eagles would privately complain whether the Sorting Hat had become senile. In his opinion, Thomas Black, who was so studious, should belong to Ravenclaw. The first place goes to Slytherin House, which scored 443 points. The Snake's applause was thunderous, and for Slytherin, who had won 7 consecutive House Cups, this time was just a normal situation like the previous years. Glory belongs to Slytherin, and this is not just talk. Malfoy held his neck high with a confident smile on his face, and the entire Slytherin dining table was enveloped in a cheerful atmosphere. On the podium, Snape still had the same expression on his face, but his hands were unconsciously puffed up. Among the Slytherins sitting there, only Thomas was still drinking the pumpkin juice with a calm expression. "Cousin, we are number 1, aren't you happy?" "Yes, Thomas, you have to know that most of these points are earned by you." Malfoy and Daphne asked in confusion, to which Thomas just smiled and shook his head, continuing to look at Dumbledore on the platform. Because he knew that the reversal was about to begin. "That's fine, Slytherin is fine, but we also have to take into account what has happened recently." When Snape heard this, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. "So I'll award some extra points. Mr. Ronald Weasley, your courage in not backing down at any time is highly commendable. Gryffindor will get 50 points. "What is that?" Malfoy was stunned when he heard this. Didn't Harry say that the two of them were just lucky to be together? Can this be considered courage? Many of the little snakes had the same idea as Malfoy. There was thunderous applause at the Gryffindor table. With these 50 points, they had surpassed Hufflepuff and were in third place, which was considered an improvement after all. Second item, Mr. Harry Potter, for your outstanding courage and extraordinary bravery, Gryffindor will give you 60 points. Gryffindor applause rang out again, and many little lions kept cheering loudly. Their current score has reached second place, surpassing Ravenclaw and Slytherin, and they are tied. Of course, this move also aroused the disgust of many young Eagles, but since it was Dumbledore who personally asked to add points, they couldn't say anything, but just turned their heads and looked at Slytherin. The general meaning is, don't be impatient, you will be the next one. Finally, I want to say that facing an enemy requires great courage, but standing against a friend is even more difficult. I want to give a 10-point reward to Neville Longbottom. After this conversion, Gryffindor's score is 10 points higher than Slytherin's. Why? This isn't fair. Malfoy was the first to speak in dissatisfaction, and then his words were like a powder keg explosion, setting off the entire Slytherin dining table. For a moment, everyone at the Slytherin table was instantly filled with anger. Even Snape's expression became much gloomier. We are not fools, and anyone with a discerning eye can see that Dumbledore is now trying to flatter Gryffindor. Many little snakes turned their eyes to Thomas Blake, waiting for the statement of the uncrowned king. They were so brave that they were ready to overturn the table as soon as Thomas nodded. Thomas, the person involved, was still sitting in the chair, drinking pumpkin juice without saying a word. He was waiting for a reversal. Sure enough, Dumbledore on the stage spoke again. Also, I have one more special person to reward. Mr. Thomas Blake, you are kind to your friends, respectful to your teachers, and cruel to your enemies. You have both courage and wisdom, so I'm going to give Slytherin 60 points. Slytherin wins the House Cup. After Dumbledore finished speaking, he smiled and winked at Thomas. Thomas also raised his glass in salute to this. For a moment, this feeling of polar reversal hit all Slytherins. So, why don't you cheer? We are the champions. Yes, we are the champions. Long live Slytherin, long live Thomas Black. Glory to Slytherin. Glory to Thomas Blake. At the Slytherin table, the sound of clinking glasses continued to ring out. At the very end, all the students from the 4 houses of Hogwarts threw their wizard hats high up to celebrate the end of the year. Then everyone's life returned to normal again until that day came. Lemon drop baby. As Thomas finished speaking, the door to the Hogwarts principal's office slowly opened. Godfather, you're looking for me. Yes, Thomas. Dumbledore grabbed a handful of cockroaches from the drawer and stuffed them into his mouth, smiling as he chewed. Want some, kid? No. No, Godfather, my teeth are hurting a little lately. Thomas looked at the enjoyment on Dumbledore's face and finally declined the proposal politely. Although he knew it was candy, it was still a bit uncomfortable when you actually saw the black, densely packed, crawling cockroaches. Well, that's a shame, this thing is delicious. As Dumbledore spoke, he grabbed another handful of cockroaches and stuffed them into his mouth. Godfather, so you are looking for me. Well, we're going to go out for a while and meet an old friend. Chapter 53. Old friend. Yes, he was once a student at Hogwarts, but unfortunately, for some reason, he was unable to graduate. So we're not going to Nurmengard this holiday. Of course I will go, but it may be a little later. So when do we leave, Godfather? If you don't have anything to pack, then my answer is now. I don't have anything to pack. Then let's go now. Dumbledore stretched, then stood up from his chair and waved for Fawkes. A red light flashed, the next second, the two of them flashed and appeared on an open grassland. Not far away, an old man was quickly writing something on a notebook with a pen. Opposite him stood a group of animals with dragon heads and horse bodies, constantly gnawing on their prey. Thomas could vaguely judge that the prey that died should be a lion. I don't know if the arrival of Dumbledore and Thomas alarmed these magical animals. The dragon horses stopped what they were saying, raised their heads, and stared at the two men viciously with their bright vertical pupils. Hot air continued to spew out of the dragon horse's nostrils, as if it was preparing for hunting. Although they have the body of a horse, they do not have any fur and are covered with black scales. If this happened in the Middle Ages, there would be no need to wear armor. As long as the knight sat on it, he would be a heavy cavalry. Roar! The leading dragon horse neighed, then galloped towards Dumbledore and the others, with the other horses following closely behind. The heavy and dense sound of their running rang in Thomas's ears. He could even feel the ground shaking. The next second, the wand appeared in Thomas's hand, and the fierce fire curse was ready to be cast. Just as the spell was about to be cast, a big hand suddenly stopped him. Fawkes on Dumbledore's shoulder suddenly spread his wings and flew towards the herd of horses, bursting out with bursts of phoenix calls. A sense of suppression belonging to the biological blood emerged on every dragon horse in the herd. The herd of horses, which was originally aggressive, quickly turned a corner and fled the scene the next second. After doing all this, Fawkes returned to Dumbledore's shoulder with his head held high like a victorious general. As for the old man who was sitting there, after seeing the group of dragon horses completely disappear, he put away his paper and pen, patted his butt, and stood up. Principal Dumbledore, long time no see. Who is this? My godson, Newt. Newt was stunned at first, then a look of surprise appeared on his face. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, kid. My name is Newt Scamander, nice to meet you. Hello, Mr. Scamander, nice to meet you too, my name is Thomas Blake. When Newt heard that Thomas had a good last name, he looked up at Dumbledore again with curiosity. Although he was aloof from worldly affairs, he was devoted to studying magical animals in the wild places where few people had been. However, he still knew a lot about the changes in the wizarding world. As far as he knew, there should be no survivors of the Black family. After all, except for the two who married out, all the survivors were sent to Azkaban, which was no different from being dead. Thomas also saw Newt's confusion, but did not explain because there was no need. Suddenly, a black, furry creature that looked like a platypus pounced on Thomas. This action startled Thomas. He saw a flash of golden light and Kukulkan opened his mouth wide, thanking the gift from nature. "Shut up, Kukulkan." "All right, master." Just as the sniff was about to enter Kukulkan's mouth, Kukulkan closed his mouth and returned to Thomas's wrist. The niffler missed and fell to the ground, but he had no time to feel the pain and quickly ran to Newt. "I'm so sorry, kid, although it's a bit offensive to say this now, but can you let me observe the magical animal just now?" Newt said with excitement on his face as he comforted the frightened niffler. In response, Thomas looked up at Dumbledore and asked what he meant. Dumbledore just smiled and nodded, indicating that he agreed to this matter. Thomas had nothing to say and immediately summoned Kukulkan out from his wrist. According to the system's explanation, Kukulkan has now entered adolescence and has unlocked all of the basilisk's abilities. He no longer petrifies people when he sees them. Now, if anyone dares to look it in the eye, there will only be one chance, and that is death. If they just look at it indirectly, they will immediately turn into a stone sculpture. Of course, these can be switched on and off. In addition to these, Thomas himself also received a phased reward, the ability to be immune to basilisks. It can be said that now the basilisks in the magic world can no longer cause any harm to Thomas except biting. Newman looked at Kukulkan as if he were appreciating a precious work of art, and every angle he chose was extremely tricky so as to avoid eye contact. "Mr. Scamander, if you want to observe carefully, please stay away. By the way, I can tell you a piece of news. Kukulkan's ability is controllable." "What? The ability is actually controllable?" When Newt heard this, a look of surprise appeared on his face. He recognized Thomas's little feathered snake at first sight. It was a variant of the basilisk, so he had been trying his best to avoid looking at it, and the angles he chose were very tricky. But despite this, he still felt itchy inside. Most snake monsters were blue and black in color, but this one was golden and had wings. This kind of limited observation really made him uncomfortable. Now after hearing Thomas's explanation, how could he not be surprised? "But before you take a closer look, Mr. Scamander, I hope you can agree to a request of mine. Do not publish or expose the existence and abilities of Kukulkan." "Of course, no problem, kid, if you're worried, we can make an unbreakable contract," Newt said anxiously, holding out his hand, indicating that he could sign the contract at any time. It can be seen that Newt's love for magical creatures has reached a point that is almost crazy. Thomas nodded in approval, then began to give orders to Kukulkan. The next second, Kukulkan, which was originally only a few dozen centimeters in size, began to grow rapidly until it was about 6 or 7 meters long. Newt watched the scene with fascination. "It's incredible." Chapter 54. Newt looked at Kukulkan with an obsessed expression, taking notes with a pen and paper in his hand. Body length 6.7 meters, wingspan 4 meters. "Look at the feathers, my god, Merlin's red underwear, what a perfect creature." Kukulkan also cooperated very well. He spread out his huge wings like a white dark cloud, and soon a large area of sunlight was covered by it. Under the sunlight, it flashed with cold light, as dazzling as stars. The enlarged body hovered on the ground, and its golden scales were arranged in a thin and orderly manner, forming lines of alternating light and dark, giving people a luxurious and solemn feeling. "Come and sit down for a while, kid. You've seen how obsessed Newt is with magical creatures. I'm afraid he won't stop for a while." Dumbledore had sat down on the grass without knowing when. He smiled and patted the soft green grass beside him. "Yes, Godfather." Thomas nodded, then walked over to sit next to Dumbledore, and declined Dumbledore's invitation to share the cockroach pile. In the warm sunshine, Thomas sat leisurely on the grass, feeling the fragrance of the grass and the breeze on his face. "A lot of the haze in my heart seems to have been cleared away recently." After taking over the mafia in his early years, Thomas understood a truth: no matter how powerful a person is, he is also limited. People may fear you, be afraid of you, and respect you, but you don't have that much energy to care about these so-called people. At this time, the appearance of henchmen is needed, just like Voldemort's Death Eaters and Grindelwald's Saints, to take charge of everything. Professional matters should be left to professionals. Although Thomas inherited everything from Grindelwald, the Saint's loyalty to him only lies in his status as Grindelwald's heir. Therefore, he must recruit his own confidants. The outline of an organization slowly unfolded in his mind. He needs more outstanding wizards to serve him, and he needs to instill ideas and shape their thoughts from an early age. Use black magic as the spine, the saints as the blade, fools as the jaw, and finally use yourself as the handle to create a sharp blade that belongs to you alone. When the sharp blade is unsheathed, the entire wizarding world will be shaken to its core. The crown falls on Slytherin, black is always on top. Thomas closed his eyes and began to think. Countless plans emerged in his mind. Either don't do it, or do it to the best of your ability. He wants to be the king of wizards. He didn't know how long it was before Dumbledore's soft voice woke him up from his thoughts. Thomas, Newt has finished his observation. Yes, Godfather. Thomas nodded, brushed off the grass debris on his wizard robe, and looked up. The sky had darkened. When Kukulkan saw his master stand up, he immediately turned into a ray of golden light, shrank and wrapped around Thomas's wrist. To be honest, it was quite happy at the beginning, until Newt started to take direct action. In Kukulkan's mind, only the owner can touch its body. How could it stand this? It immediately spun its tail and sent Newt flying 7 or 8 meters away. Who would have thought that in the next second, Newt got up from the ground and cast a healing spell on himself. He came running over again. What followed was a repetitive cycle, and more than once, I almost couldn't control my emotions and activated my abilities. But at this moment, Newt seemed to have received some kind of induction and turned back into the person who was observing from the side. It shouldn't have done anything, so it could only helplessly look at Thomas, who was sitting on the lawn with his eyes closed, hoping that his master would wake up soon. Fortunately, the owner has finally woken up, and it can comfortably return to the owner's hands. Thank you, Thomas, for allowing me to observe such a rare and magical animal. Newt said excitedly. Oh, this is the reward. As Newt spoke, he took out a sealed orchid from his suitcase and handed it to Thomas. Kukulkan, who was about to fall asleep, seemed to have sensed something and immediately swam out from Thomas's wrist, staring at the orchid in Newt's hand with his snake eyes. You're welcome, Mr. Scamander. This is what I should do. I have also read your book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is now included in the Hogwarts textbooks. Thomas said with a smile. Master, don't talk about anything else. I want that orchid, I want it. Kukulkan kept spitting out his tongue, urging Thomas. Then I'll be here, thank you Mr. Scamander for the gift. Thomas said as he reached out to take the glass bottle from Newt's hand and opened it. The next second, Kukulkan suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the orchid into his stomach in one gulp. After doing all this, Kukulkan twisted his body happily and returned to Thomas's wrist. Newt watched this scene, then began to explain to Thomas and the others. This orchid, its real scientific name is blood orchid, it is a rare magic potion that has an extremely strong attraction to snakes. I got it by chance when I was traveling in the Amazon jungle. I have preserved it until now using magic and alchemical items. According to ancient records, if snakes can swallow blood orchids, there is a high probability that they can complete a racial evolution. Thomas listened to Newt's speech, and his mind couldn't help but think of a movie from his previous life, Anaconda. After Newt finished speaking, he opened his suitcase, made a gesture of invitation to Thomas and the others, and then walked into the suitcase first. That's right, Newt walked into the suitcase. Then Dumbledore and Thomas looked at each other and then stepped into the suitcase. Even Thomas couldn't help but exclaim at the scene inside the suitcase. Thomas roughly estimated that the space in the suitcase was at least 3 or 4 kilometers in diameter. There are many magical animals living there, and some of them are even recorded as extinct in books. Please sit down. You're welcome. Just treat this place as your own home. Newt smiled and picked up the teapot to fill the cups in front of Dumbledore and Thomas. Then Newt and Dumbledore entered into a pleasant conversation, mostly about recent events in the wizarding world. Thomas sat aside and listened quietly. After an unknown amount of time, the conversation between the two finally ended and the three of them said goodbye to each other. Fox also flew over at the first moment, and with a red light covering them, Thomas and Dumbledore left here in a space. Distortion. Chapter 55. As for the place the two came to, needless to say, it was naturally Nurmengard. Before anyone entered the castle, Grindelwald came down excitedly and took Dumbledore away, leaving Thomas standing alone in the hall. Well, I feel like I'm really redundant. Thomas cursed the two old guys in his heart and turned back to his room. A huge idea emerged in his mind, and countless rare metals appeared in front of him. The most precious one among them was the magic stone placed in the center, emitting red light. He will create a symbol unique to the fanfic. Fatui, fool, sequence executive, ordinary executive. After that, Thomas entered into a frenzy of creation, which lasted for about a whole month. At the dining table, Grindelwald gently picked up a small piece of exquisite cake and fed it to Dumbledore. He took out a silk scarf from his suit jacket pocket and gently wiped the residue from the corner of Dumbledore's mouth. Looking at the satisfied smile on Dumbledore's face, Grindelwald felt unprecedented satisfaction at this moment, but it seemed that he had forgotten something, but he just couldn't remember it. Forget it, it doesn't matter. As long as life can be like this every day, even if the world is destroyed, it has nothing to do with him. Dumbledore ate bite after bite of the cake with satisfaction. It tasted good in his mouth, but the sweetness was in his heart. For a moment, he even wanted time to stop at this moment, quit his job as the headmaster of Hogwarts, no longer care about the intrigues of the wizarding world, and stay with Gale forever. But he couldn't. For the sake of the stability of the wizarding world, he absolutely could not stop. Forget it, just relax once in a while, who knows. However, I always feel like I have forgotten something. What is it? Just when Dumbledore seemed to have remembered a clue, Grindelwald's gentle voice sounded again. Albus, open your mouth. By the time Grindelwald and Dumbledore recovered from the sweet pink bubbles, it was too late. Grindelwald and Dumbledore teleported to Thomas's room. Then blue flames emerged from Grindelwald's hands and blasted towards the door. This gate, which has a history of nearly 1,000 years, was shattered in an instant. Dumbledore looked anxiously towards the room and spoke loudly. Thomas, are you okay? Albus, what's going on? The two rushed into the room anxiously, only to see Thomas lying motionless and peacefully on the bed. Dumbledore watched this scene, all sorts of past events came to his mind, and a feeling of sadness filled his brain for an instant. No. Thomas. It's all my fault. If I hadn't been greedy for that little bit of tenderness, Thomas wouldn't have gotten into trouble. When Grindelwald saw this scene, his brows furrowed, and he stopped Dumbledore with his big hands and hugged him in his arms. Feeling his beloved's trembling body, he began to feel regretful, but at this moment, he could not give up on himself. He had to be Albus's support. It's okay, Albus, the soup. Just as Grindelwald was about to open his mouth to show his warm man charm, a discordant voice suddenly sounded. Who is this? Damn it, can't I sleep? Thomas was awakened from his coma by extreme anger, and even cursed in his native language. Dumbledore, what did Thomas just say? Grindelwald, I don't know, it seems to be the language of the Taoist priests in the Celestial Empire. The sound of their conversation immediately brought Thomas back to reality. Damn it, I actually let it slip. Should I get rid of him? No, I don't think I can beat him. After a brief thought, Thomas chose to seize the initiative and attack first. Two godfathers, why are you in my room, and my door, what? The two centenarian old men looked at Thomas, who had a confused look on his face, then turned to look at each other. Finally, Dumbledore coughed twice awkwardly and spoke. Thomas, we care about you. I heard from the elves down there that you have been in seclusion for a month. You still don't eat well, how can this be? You are in the period of growing up now. Thomas listened to this and forced himself to resist the urge to roll his eyes. What? You guys remembered me now? You guys have been together for a month, why didn't you ask me if I had eaten well? Even though Thomas thought this in his heart, he still smiled and answered. Godfather said, I'll sleep a little longer and then go eat. At this moment, Thomas just wanted to cover himself with the quilt and ignore these two old men who were trying to keep him from sleeping soundly. After working hard for a month, I finally get a good night's sleep, but suddenly I can't wake up. Anyone would feel unhappy. Just as Thomas was getting ready to go to bed, Grindelwald suddenly asked. Thomas, I'm curious, what have you been busy with this month? When Dumbledore heard Grindelwald's question, a curious look appeared on his face, and then he asked. Yes, kid, don't be nervous. We are all your godfathers and your closest relatives. You can communicate with us if you have any questions. Good, you are a good Dumbledore who follows your husband's lead. I didn't expect that someone like you with thick eyebrows and big eyes would be like this. There are bad people among the crowd. Seeing that the questions had reached this point, Thomas simply spread his hands and revealed his cards directly. He had never intended to hide it in the first place. I'm making the organization's emblem. Organize. Badge. Thomas felt the incredulous looks in the two old men's eyes and couldn't help but blush. Yes, it's the emblem of the organization. Godfather Dumbledore has the Order of the Phoenix. Godfather Grindelwald has saints, so what's wrong with me creating my own organization and setting up an emblem? Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully, then held out his hand. Look at your badge. Thomas sighed helplessly, and then the ring in his hand flashed blue light, and an ancient yet gorgeous bone ring appeared in Thomas's hand. The dry bones formed a ring, like a circling bone snake, surrounding and guarding the red gem in the center. And inside the ruby, there seems to be liquid flowing continuously, forming an Arabic numeral, 1. The two of them looked at the ring carefully. At first glance, they just thought it was exquisite, but the more they looked at it, the more shocking it became. You really made this? Chapter 56. The next morning, Thomas got up early and explained his intentions to Dumbledore and the others, then packed his things and went to Malfoy Manor. He doesn't want to eat this dog food for the rest of the day. Thomas thought as he pulled out a portfolio from his ring. This was the gift that Lucius Stowe had sent him via owl not long ago. It was the door key to Malfoy Manor. Using it, he could teleport to the gate of Malfoy Manor. It is a bit similar to Doraemon's portal, but this kind of door key is directional. One key can only go to one place and cannot be switched at will. With the turn of the key, Thomas reached out and opened the door in front of him. A magnificent manor appeared in front of Thomas. Oh, welcome, Master Black. A sharp voice suddenly sounded, and Thomas turned his head to look, and found that a house elf had appeared beside him without him knowing. He looks much younger than Creaker, and his skin isn't as loose and sagging, so it's probably Dobby without a doubt. Take me in. Thomas said in a cold tone. Oh, yes, Master Thomas, Dobby will take you in now. Thomas nodded and followed Dobby's steps into the interior of the manor. As Thomas went deeper, a magnificent and solemn castle came into his sight. The morning sun slowly shone down, falling on the castle and the manor, giving it a sense of mystery. Elaborate gardens surround it, with huge flower beds and free-roaming peacocks. The interior of the castle is even more exaggerated, with luxurious ornaments, gorgeous furniture, gilded mirrors and marble fireplaces placed everywhere. The entrance hall was exaggerated, with portraits hanging all over the walls, all of which were of the ancestors of the Malfoy family. Looking down, one could not see any traces of tiles or stones, and every floor surface was covered with luxurious carpets. All of this, in the end, all comes together to form two words, rich. Thomas sat down in the living room, took a sip of the black tea that Dobby had brewed, then put it down and asked. Where are my uncle and aunt? Why isn't Draco here either? Are they all out? Yes, Master Black. The Master and Master Draco went to Diagon Alley together to buy the textbooks needed for the new semester. After hearing what Dobby said, Thomas nodded in satisfaction. Looking at the timeline, he should be going to deliver the Horcrux because Voldemort reappeared in Hogwarts some time ago. This made Fudge, the British Minister of Magic, fall into extreme anxiety and uneasiness. He knew very well that he had no special abilities and that he was able to become the so-called Minister of Magic simply by luck. So if Voldemort really returns, will he attack Hogwarts first? The answer is no. Hogwarts, after all, is just a magic school, and Voldemort's first target must be the Ministry of Magic, which symbolizes the authority of the wizarding world of the Great Eagle Empire. At that time, he would only have two choices: kneel down and kiss Voldemort's shoes, swear to submit to Voldemort, be engraved with the blood curse of a Death Eater, and be spurned by the entire British wizarding community, and even the world wizarding community. Or, choose to fight to the end, and then be sent to see Merlin in one go. However, he didn't want to choose either of these two options. He wanted to resist this injustice and change his fate. Therefore, he began to search vigorously again for several pure-blood families that had followed Voldemort in the past, even though he knew that this would make those families unhappy. But for the sake of his position in life, He had to do it. Not long after, the door was opened and Draco was the first to enter. He saw Thomas sitting in his seat at a glance. "Cousin, it's really you, this is really great. I didn't quite believe it when my father told me that." Draco excitedly threw everything in his hand to Dobby and ran towards Thomas. Thomas immediately stood up from his seat, bowed respectfully to the Malfoys, and spoke. "I came here without prior notice. I hope my uncle and aunt don't mind." "Oh, of course, Thomas, why would we mind? Xiaolong told us about your deeds. You did a great job, kid. I'm proud of you. Oh, by the way, you didn't get the chance last time. This time, Thomas, you must have a taste of my aunt's cooking skills," Narcissa said with a smile before heading towards the kitchen. Lucius saw Narcissa leave, turned around and spoke to Xiaolong. "Draco, please go upstairs or to the garden for a while. I have something I want to talk to Thomas alone." "But, father, my cousin is..." "I don't like to repeat my words a second time." "All right, father." Draco looked at Thomas a little aggrieved, then strode towards the garden. After Draco left, the cold and serious look on Lucius's face disappeared instantly, and turned into a friendly face. "Thomas, you should have noticed in the academy that Xiaolong is like this at home and outside. He is spoiled by us. There are some things in Hogwarts where I hope you can help a little more." "Of course, uncle, it's too polite for you to say that. Draco and I are brothers, and it's only natural for brothers to support each other." Lucius heard Thomas's answer, nodded with satisfaction, and continued. "I don't know yet what Thomas's plans are after graduation. If you don't mind, you can talk to your uncle." This looked like a normal conversation in an ordinary family, very ordinary, but Thomas could hear the meaning behind it. It was a test. Dominate the magic world and become the king. Thomas's tone was very brief and calm, as if this was just a very ordinary little thing in his eyes. But when Lucius heard this, Thomas successfully captured the flash of shock and joy in his pupils. Sure enough, his nephew was not a wizard who was content with being ordinary. After this incident, Thomas's reputation in the outside world seemed to have surpassed that of the savior. The heir of the first Dark Lord, the godson of the White Lord, the heir of a pure-blood family, the one who killed Voldemort alone, all these halos mixed together made it so that no one in the entire global wizarding world dared to underestimate the young man in front of them. Chapter 57. So, I think my uncle asked this question not just because he wanted to see what his nephew plans to do in the future. Thomas smiled, picked up the black tea on the table and took another sip. The gamble begins. Every investment made by the Malfoy family can eventually reap huge profits. This is not only because they have excellent vision, but more importantly, they have enough courage. If the identity of the heir of the Black family was not enough to make Lucius make up his mind at the beginning, then now with Thomas, the two devils of Black and White, as his backers, he can put all the resources of the Malfoy family and take another gamble. If it succeeds, Thomas will be crowned king, and the Malfoy family, as Thomas's blood relatives, will naturally become royal relatives. By that time, Malfoy will no longer be the leader of just the British wizarding aristocracy, they will become the leader of the wizarding aristocracy around the world. As for failure, the probability of that was almost zero. He didn't believe that after Thomas was taken away by the first Dark Lord, Dumbledore immediately acknowledged him as his godson. It was a simple and normal thing. There is only one possibility: Dumbledore and the first Dark Lord reached a consensus, or in other words, it was a compromise from Dumbledore. Unlike Voldemort, who never left Britain, the first Dark Lord's rule was global. According to the records of family history, it can be said with certainty that if Grindelwald had won the final battle, the entire global wizarding world would probably have been unified for a long time now. Thomas, the Malfoy family will support you unconditionally. You have the right to use your property, connections, or publicity rights as you wish, without any restrictions. Thank you for your kindness, uncle. As I just said, Draco is my brother. We all have a bright future. The Malfoy family comes first. By the way, Thomas, it's not very peaceful outside recently. Is it because of the Horcrux? Uncle, don't worry. Lucius was stunned when he heard Thomas's answer, but then he quickly realized that he had underestimated his nephew. The Horcrux is Voldemort's most secretive secret, and only a few high-ranking Death Eaters know about it. But now Thomas knows this information, which is not simple. Of course, Thomas also had his own ideas. To be honest, he didn't mind the basilisk in the basement petrifying his classmates or causing panic. If necessary, he wouldn't even mind letting Kukurkan go and petrifying a few more students. After all, as long as they were not looking directly at them, the most they would be petrified through the reflection would not endanger their lives. When he returned to school this time, he had already prepared a deployment plan. He first gathered a few people he trusted, distributed medals, and waited until the basilisk incident broke out completely. When a fighting club is organized, it is also the time when the Fatui come forward and harvest people on a large scale. A good executive must be cultivated from an early age, which is one of the beliefs that Thomas strongly believes in. At the Malfoy family dinner, everyone raised their glasses and drank happily together, with joyful smiles on everyone's face. On the Hogwarts Express, Thomas was leisurely enjoying the candies and desserts he had just bought. In his opinion, properly supplementing some sweets can indeed make people feel happy, provided that the sugar content of the sweets must be normal. Malfoy sat opposite Thomas with a worried look on his face, looking out the window from time to time. "What's wrong with Malfoy?" Daphne asked curiously as she peeled a candy and fed it to Thomas beside her. "I didn't see Harley and Ronald when I got on the bus," Thomas preached nonchalantly while chewing the candy in his mouth. He didn't know when the bond between him, Harley and Ronald suddenly became so strong. Suddenly there was a knock on the door of the box. Malfoy stood up suddenly, opened the door with a smile, and spoke. "Oh, Harley, Ronald, what did you two do to make it so?" "Hello, I'm looking for my sister." "Is my sister here?" A girl with golden hair looked at Malfoy and asked carefully. "Astoria, I'm over here. Come here quickly," Daphne said, waving enthusiastically. Thomas also winked at Malfoy beside him, indicating that he should put Astoria's luggage on it. What's wrong with this guy? Facing his future wife, he didn't care at all. Thomas was slightly puzzled and enjoyed Daphne's feeding again. Malfoy put the box away, sat down again with a lost look on his face, turned his head to look out the window, wondering what he was thinking. For a moment, the atmosphere in the car became a little awkward. "Let me introduce you, this is Thomas Blake. This is my sister, Astoria Greengrass." "Hello, nice to meet you," Thomas said with a smile. "Well, I'm glad to meet you too, Senior Thomas. I hear my sister mention your name every day at home, and I finally met you today." "Astoria." "Ah, what's wrong, sister?" Astoria asked, looking up with an innocent look on her face. "By the way, you must be Draco Malfoy, right?" Malfoy, who was originally leaning against the window with a hesitant look on his face, seemed to have received some instinctive reaction. He suddenly turned around, raised his head slightly 45 degrees, and spoke. "Of course, this young master is Draco Malfoy." Thomas looked at this scene and turned his head away in shame. Well, there was no hope. Answering had become a conditioned reflex. Suddenly, a red car floating in the sky appeared outside the train. Slowly, the car window was rolled down, revealing two people inside the car. They were none other than Harry and Ronald. "Draco, didn't you say you wanted to see Harry and Ronald? Look out the window." When Malfoy heard Thomas's voice, he immediately turned and looked out the window. "Ronald is here, but who is that scarred guy next to him? Where's Harley?" "He is Harry," Thomas said somewhat puzzled. No. You don't understand, cousin, he's not Harley." "Sister, what happened to him?" Astoria asked with a puzzled look on her face as she looked at Malfoy, who kept howling. Daphne didn't answer Astoria's question directly, but just pointed a finger at her head. Astoria nodded as if she understood, then looked at Malfoy with a little pity in her eyes. Chapter 58. As the roar of the train stopped, the students inside the carriage slowly got off. Astoria left the team first. Since she was a freshman, she could not go to Hogwarts with Thomas and his group. Goyle and Crabbe came to Thomas and his companions as soon as possible. Next came the Weasley twins and Hermione, and thus a multi-person team consisting of Gryffindors and Slytherins was formed. Apart from the freshmen who were curious, the expressions of the other seniors were very calm, as if this was a very normal thing. Hagrid was still gathering the freshmen, while Thomas and the others, led by the Weasley twins, headed for another road. "Thomas, did you see Harry and Ronald just now?" "I looked all over the train and didn't see either of them," Hermione asked. "Oh, you mean Harry and Ronald? They are in trouble." George and Fred had smirks on their faces, and it was obvious that they knew what was going on. Just as Hermione was about to continue asking questions, Malfoy spoke up. "Oh my god, cousin, look, what is that?" Thomas looked in the direction of Malfoy's finger, and saw a number of carriages parked not far away. Right in front of the carriage, a group of large but skinny horse-like creatures were standing quietly. Its entire body is pitch black, with a slightly ferocious-looking dragon head on its head and a pair of huge wings on its back. "Can you see them, Draco?" Daphne spoke in surprise, and everyone in the team suddenly looked at Malfoy with admiration. "Is there something wrong? Can't you see?" Malfoy asked, somewhat confused. "Of course, I saw it before when I was reading the Hogwarts rules and historical miscellany to kill time." "Aren't you looking at this to kill time?" Malfoy said in surprise, and the others couldn't help but look at Hermione in disbelief. They vaguely remembered the Hogwarts school rules and historical miscellany, which was a history book as thick as a door panel. After seeing it for the first time, people will immediately lose the desire to continue reading. "Is there something wrong?" Hermione looked at everyone with a puzzled look on her face and said, then changed the subject the next second and continued to get back to the point. "Let's not talk about this for now. It is written in this book that after reaching the second year, students of Hogwarts must ride in a carriage pulled by the Thestrals to go to the academy. And magical animals like the Thestrals are even more mysterious. Ordinary people can't see them at all. Only wizards who have experienced death can see their original appearance." Since Malfoy said he could see Thestrals, there can only be one truth. Malfoy has experienced death. Hermione's words brought back Malfoy's forgotten memories, and for a moment he seemed to be back in the warehouse where the fire snakes were spewing. But he still appeared very calm, because he was no longer the Malfoy of the past. He was now in his second year. Malfoy's face was slightly raised 45 degrees, and he spoke with pride. "Of course, these are just trivial matters. Who am I? I am Malfoy." Goyle and Crabbe, the two Malfoy henchmen, naturally would not miss the opportunity to flatter their master, and they immediately started to flatter him. After everyone got on the carriage began to float. Even though Daphne and the others knew the principle of the vehicle's suspension, they still felt panic in their hearts. "Cousin, Malfoy swallowed the words as soon as he said them. He originally planned to seek some comfort from Thomas, but when he turned around, he found that his dear cousin's left and right hands were now occupied. He couldn't shamelessly ask Daphne and Hermione to give him a seat after boasting so much, so he could only hold the armrest of the carriage with a sad face. When the modern carriage landed, Malfoy's face was already very pale. Thomas was also very curious when he saw this scene. Logically speaking, when Malfoy was flying around on his broom, shouldn't it be more bumpy and dangerous than it is now? But he looked as if nothing had happened. Although the carriage pulled by Yechi looked dangerous, it was very stable. Soon, everyone walked into the lobby and took their seats. It was still the usual process, but Harley and Ronald were nowhere to be seen. However, Thomas still noticed that his dean, who was sitting on the podium, looked anxious. At this moment, a small door at the side suddenly opened, and Hagrid walked in and whispered something to Professor McGonagall. Then the happy smile on Professor McGonagall's face faded a lot. Then he stood up and followed Hagrid out. After seeing this, Snape immediately put down the cutlery in his hand and ran out in a hurry, without even waving his robe as usual. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. As Harry's good friend, Thomas could only mourn for him in his heart for a few seconds, and then turned his attention to the food. The next day, Thomas saw Harry and Ronald in the cafeteria early in the morning, both of them looking dusty. They looked listless, probably because they had been severely scolded. On Gryffindor's hourglass, a dark red block appeared on it before it even started to fill up, which should be a negative score. The points would not be accumulated again until the dark red plate was filled with sand, which was a heavy blow to the Gryffindors, who were in a good mood and ready to face the day with full confidence. Harry had taken out 2 bottles of potions in his hands without knowing when, and looked up at the huge hourglass above from time to time. From time to time, he looked down at the potion in his hand, with a conflicted look on his face. Thomas knew that Harry was hesitating whether to turn back into Harry. It would be fine if Harry was just confused at the beginning, but now that new students have enrolled, Harry has understood a lot of things. He knew that if he continued to develop in the direction of Harry, he would not even have the first choice of spouse during the next 6 years of his Hogwarts career. He is afraid that he won't even have the right to choose his spouse. On one side was the score, and on the other was the right to choose a spouse. Harry was caught between the two, looking hesitant. Thomas watched the scene quietly at the Slytherin table, without any intention of stepping forward to intervene. Because compared to these, he has more important things to do. For example, completely consolidating Slytherin's power. Chapter 59. Because Thomas knew that a godsend opportunity was right in front of him, and the new clown-like professor of defense against the dark arts would personally give him this opportunity. Just as Thomas finished his meal and was about to get up and leave the cafeteria, a strong smell of perfume rushed into his nostrils, and then he saw a wizard in gorgeous clothes smiling and extending his hand to him. And this person was none other than the new teacher of defense against the dark arts who was introduced at the opening banquet yesterday, Grod Lockhart, a complete clown. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Black." "Of course, it's nice to meet you too, Professor Lockhart." Thomas nodded, but did not reach out to shake Lockhart's hand. He then stood up and left the cafeteria. In his opinion, it would be better to sleep in the dormitory than to attend such a clown-like course. To be honest, he did miss Voldemort from his first year. After all, he had something to learn. Lockhart looked at Thomas's back as he left, his face darkening. In his opinion, no matter how many famous nicknames and prefixes Thomas had, he was just a little kid, and the so-called defeat of Voldemort was just Dumbledore building momentum for his godson. He didn't believe such a ridiculous rumor. After all, for him, this method could even be described as practice makes perfect. His usual method was to find those down-and-out wizards, sign an unbreakable contract with them, give them some meager money, and buy their stories. Since this little brat doesn't give him face, he will naturally teach this little brat a lesson when class starts. Naturally, this scene was seen by many students. The news that Thomas didn't like Lockhart instantly became the headline of Hogwarts. Many students took the initiative to distance themselves from Lockhart. The largest number of students are from Slytherin College, and basically every Slytherin student will turn around and leave as soon as they see Lockhart. No greeting, no talking. Lockhart's novels are indeed well written, but they can only confuse some ordinary wizarding families and students. To the Slytherins, who were generally of aristocratic class, this was just a piece of fun at best, and no one would take Lockhart seriously. Thomas is not only the heir to the Black family of the Holy 28, but also the heir to the first Dark Lord and the godson of the White Lord. The strength he has displayed is astonishingly terrifying. If someone told them that Thomas would ascend the throne immediately after graduation, they would probably believe it. The two are so different that they are not even comparable. Slytherin, who focuses on interests, will naturally choose the correct answer. Inside the office, Lockhart took a sip of fire whiskey, forgetting all the unpleasant experiences he had in the morning. He turned his head to look at the cage covered with black cloth in the corner and let out a strange laugh. He has traveled all over the country for so many years, and he doesn't believe that he can't handle a little kid like Thomas who hasn't even grown all his hair. Everyone has fears, and he already had a perfect idea in his mind. When Thomas was frightened and panicked in class, he would appear and save him from danger. By then, I will definitely impress my classmates. At the same time, in the Slytherin common room, Thomas lay on the main sofa, stroking Iris's soft fur in his arms, and was also thinking about his plans for the afternoon. "Great, cousin, you are here." An excited voice suddenly sounded, and it didn't take much thought to know that the person coming was Malfoy. After all, in the entire Slytherin, only Malfoy dared to call Thomas so openly. "It's a nice day outside, so I won't go out for a walk." Thomas looked up and said with a smile, in his opinion Malfoy could now be considered one of his own. After all, Lucius had stated before that the entire Malfoy family could be commanded by Thomas at will, which was enough to prove the Malfoy family's sincerity. But Thomas soon discovered the highlight. In the past, there were only two people following Malfoy, Goyle and Crabbe, who could be said to be Malfoy's two close followers. But today, there was one more person, a black-haired, thin-looking little boy. "This is Theodore Nott, cousin. He found me today when I was out in the sun. He said he wanted to see you, so I brought him here," Malfoy said carelessly. Thomas nodded, then looked at Theodore Nott and asked in a calm tone. "Draco said you wanted to see me." "Yes, sir," Theodore Nott replied with a fanatical look. This scene aroused Thomas's interest. The Nott family was also one of the 28 sacred families, but it was indeed a declining one. Just like the Malfoy family, Old Nott joined the Death Eaters without any worries, but unfortunately, Old Nott was not as shrewd as the Malfoys. Not to mention getting rich, we can only talk about living a comfortable life. Then tell me why you're here. Thomas continued. I want to join you, my lord. Theodore said sincerely. So what can you give me? To be honest, I can say without exaggeration that even without the help of my identity as godfather and heir of the saint, just based on the words heir of the black family. There are so many wizards who want to join me. Why do you think I would be interested in you? I'm looking at Not, who is now completely down and out. Thomas's words were heart-wrenching, but Theodore had no way of refutation. In terms of money, he is the heir of the black family of the current sacred 28 clans, and the entire family treasury will be used exclusively by him. In terms of connections, the Malfoy family has already sent out the words unconditional support for Black to the outside world. In terms of power, Thomas has the White Lord, currently the most powerful person in the entire wizarding world, as his godfather. In terms of manpower, although the Saints have been a force for decades, but if we convert it into back then, who was not a witch party member? After comparing them in this way, Theodore was sure that there was nothing outstanding about him that Thomas would like. What to do? What to do? The boy's body was shaking unconsciously, and Malfoy's face looked a little ugly. If I had known this idea was so difficult, I would not have introduced it to my cousin. If I make my cousin unhappy, won't it be all my fault? The boy's eyes gradually became fierce, as if he had made a certain decision in his heart. Lord Black. Although I cannot bring you wealth and power, I have something to offer you. Please believe me, this thing will never make you regret it. Chapter 60. Oh, tell me what you have to give. Thomas looked at the serious-looking young man in front of him with a hint of smile in his eyes and spoke. My life. I can offer my life, sir. Theodore said in a frantic manner. Malfoy and the other two were all stunned at the moment. Brother, are you serious? After all, the three were born after the Dark Lord was destroyed. Perhaps at that time, they were just babies in swaddling clothes, and they didn't know anything about dark wizards. Besides, the upbringing at home was relatively peaceful, but the Knot family was different. Old Knot was a die-hard fan of Voldemort and a die-hard Death Eater. During the Wizard Purge, he probably ate too many big melons, which made his brain not so good. I'm not really interested in making money, I just keep killing every day. After Voldemort's fall, the Knot family had emptied out all their savings in order to keep Old Knot from going to Azkaban. But Old Knot didn't care. He always believed that his master would return, and at that time his Knot family would be Voldemort's most loyal servants. They will eventually surpass the Malfoys and become the top family in the wizarding world. They have been brainwashed and are no longer very smart. So he insisted on instilling Voldemort's ideas into Theodore every day, and strictly implemented the teaching of dark magic every day. So, don't underestimate Theodore, a fair-skinned young man. When he gets ruthless, he can kill at least a dozen Slytherin students with just one wand. But Theodore is different from Old Knot, he has his own ideas. In his opinion, no matter how much his father, Voldemort, boasted about himself, or how glorious he had once been, he was still a loser no matter what. However, Blake is different. He currently owns huge resources and industries, and has 2 demon kings to protect him. Moreover, this adult also seems to want to unify the country, which is an opportunity for him. I will be your sword, slaying all your enemies. I will be the flame that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that protects you. I will give you my life and honor, every day from now on. As Theodore spoke, he drew out his wand, placed it in front of his chest, and gave Thomas a standard noble salute. Very good, remember your promise, Theodore. From now on, you no longer represent only the Knot family. You represent the Black family in my will. As Thomas spoke, he took out an executive officer's ring and threw it to Theodore. Seeing this, Theodore hurriedly took advantage of the flying ring. And inside the ruby, the flowing liquid slowly formed a 4. Keep it, Theodore. This ring is more than just a status symbol. It also includes 3 fire spells, 2 patroness spells, and 1 apparition spell. As long as you use magic power to activate it, you can use the spell in the ring. Thank you for your kindness, my lord. I will swear on my life that I will wear this ring forever unless I die. Theodore bowed respectfully, then spoke very respectfully. Malfoy, who was standing aside, felt a strong sense of crisis at this moment. To be honest, he really regretted bringing a boy to see his cousin. No, I have to set an example too. Damn it, why are there no other words in my head except making up stories? No, there is one. Me too, cousin. Malfoy said hastily. Seeing this, Thomas sighed helplessly, then took out another ring and threw it to Malfoy. Malfoy excitedly took the ring and put it on his hand. The liquid in it slowly formed a one. Thomas then sent a few people away on the pretext of taking a rest, and prepared to take a nap to recharge his energy for the afternoon's arrangements. Sister Daphne, who happened to be taking a walk outside, met Malfoy going out. Looking at his grinning face that seemed to be almost reaching the sky, she asked curiously. Malfoy, you seem to be in a good mood. Is there something good going on? Malfoy raised his head slightly, and his hand with a ring slowly stroked the golden back hair, and said with a proud look on his face. Oh, it's Daphne. How did you know that my cousin gave me a ring and that there was a spell in it? What, Thomas actually gave you a ring? Daphne said in disbelief. Yeah, Theodore has that too. Malfoy continued to speak proudly, and handed it to Astoria to show off. Oh my god, my sister is so beautiful. There is a magic spell in it. This must be the magic device that father mentioned before. Hey! Sister, where are you going? Astoria asked in confusion as she watched Daphne leave. But Daphne did not answer her sister's question and immediately quickened her pace. A bad premonition arose in Malfoy's heart. Could it be that he was in trouble? Chapter 61. It was not until the lunch break was over that Malfoy dared to return to the Slytherin common room. Not long after entering the Slytherin common room, Malfoy felt the hairs on his back stand up instantly. Turning his head, he saw Thomas, sitting on the sofa, looking at him kindly, while Daphne, who was sitting next to him, was playing with the ring in her hand with a smile on her face. You can see that she is very satisfied. Now is the time to choose. Choose 1, say hello to your beloved cousin. Choose 2, go straight to the dormitory. Malfoy made his choice. Goyle, Crabbe, are the textbooks for this afternoon ready? Not ready, right? Let's go get them together now. Goyle and Crabbe looked at their young master in confusion, a little bewildered for a moment. Just now in the yard, the young master was scolding Lockhart as an incompetent waste to other Slytherin students. You are not even as good as one finger of Master Black, so why are you so keen on learning now? Draco, why don't you come over and sit down with me? Thomas said with a smile on his face and a calm tone. But Malfoy felt something was wrong. His cousin's attitude was too calm, like a precursor to a coming storm. Ah, that, cousin. Come here, Malfoy. Okay, no problem, cousin. Malfoy hurriedly trotted to the sofa, looking down and admitting his mistake. If other Hogwarts students saw this scene, they would be very shocked. Malfoy, who always looked down on others, actually bowed his head and admitted his mistake. But when you think about the person being Thomas, it makes perfect sense. Thomas sighed helplessly as he looked at Malfoy, who bowed his head and admitted his mistake. In his plan, Malfoy would be his right-hand man. The blood connection cannot be severed. Although it is thin, it is better than using outsiders as long as the two are bound together. The Malfoy family's motto has always been family first. As long as Thomas ascends the throne and the Black family becomes the most core existence in the wizarding world, if the Malfoys still want to control power, then their best way is to rely on Black. Thomas wanted to completely bind the interests of the two together. At least for the next 3 generations, if Black was born, then Malfoy would be born. The reason why he never interfered with Malfoy at Hogwarts was that he wanted him to have a happy childhood. After all, he still had Lucius to take care of him and he didn't need him for the time being, so he didn't care too much. But today he found out that he was wrong, and he was wrong to an outrageous extent. What he really needed was a chess piece who could sacrifice his life for him and charge into battle like Theodore did. Rather than a child who always talks about showing off. He must change Malfoy's current character and thinking, so that in the end, Malfoy can be one of the chess players instead of a bargaining chip that can be discarded at any time. I am very disappointed in you, Draco. I can tell you that I will set up an organization. The one on your ring is not just a number. This represents a seat and status in the organization, but you haven't behaved in the way I expected. Arrogant and ignorant, showing off wantonly, always talking about the glory of his family's past. It makes me sad. Malfoy lowered his head even more as he listened to these words. Just as Thomas said, it was his nature to like showing off. As a second-generation noble of the top wizarding world, he also had the capital to show off. But he failed to live up to his cousin's expectations. "I'm sorry." "Don't say you're sorry, Draco. Lift your head." Malfoy raised his head nervously, and met Thomas's obsidian eyes. "This is my last chance to see a different Malfoy. Don't let me down again, Draco, we are blood relatives." "Yes, cousin, I won't let you down again." After Malfoy said this, his entire temperament changed drastically. The confusion in his eyes faded away, replaced by firm belief. He, Draco Malfoy, no longer needs to rely on the glory of his ancestors, because he will surpass them. He will not let his cousin down, he will use his own efforts to prove that his cousin's vision is correct. Many years later, the Golden Peacock, who was standing beside the throne wearing luxurious clothes and holding a snake-head scepter, and who was feared by the outside world, could not help but smile slightly whenever he recalled this moment. He finally became what his cousin hoped he would be. His fame overwhelmed the entire wizarding world. He was the Wizard King, a frontier minister second only to the Emperor and above everyone else. He is the sharp blade that the enemies fear, he is the proud Golden Peacock, he plays with power wantonly, he can change the situation with just a wave of his hand, he can make rain fall and clouds appear, he is the CEO of Fatui, he is Draco Malfoy. The pride of the family, one of the rulers of the Empire. Thomas narrowed his eyes slightly and leaned back on the sofa. He knew that no matter what the future held, the once cowardly Malfoy was dead now. Daphne, who was standing by, watched this scene and slowly put the ring on the ring finger of her left hand with a calm expression. In Western countries, they recognize the left hand more because the left hand is close to the heart and the blood vessels in the left ring finger are connected to the heart, implying that the heart can be firmly held. P.S. As to whether it is unrequited love or love at first sight, it is hard to say now. There will not be any female lead before graduation in 7 years. As the class bell rang, all the second-year Slytherin students gathered in the Slytherin common room. This was Thomas's first attempt to intimidate Lockhart. He had no interest in this extremely narcissistic and incompetent person. Not to mention filling out the so-called narcissism test paper. "Thomas, what on earth are you thinking? Gathering students instead of going to the classroom, are you planning a rebellion?" A deep and magnetic voice echoed in the Slytherin common room. The person who came was Snape. As soon as the bell rang, Lockhart looked at the half-empty classroom, his brows furrowed so much that they were almost forming a shape. Without much hesitation, Lockhart turned around and knocked on the door of Snape's office, and threatened that this was Slytherin humiliating the professor and must be severely punished. Before he could finish his words, Snape slammed his shoulder away and he took 6 or 7 steps backwards, barely stopping when he reached the wall. Just when he was about to accuse Snape of violence, Snape himself had already disappeared. Chapter 62. Snape's expression was very gloomy, because he found that after he finished speaking, none of the second-year students present moved, and they stood quietly beside Thomas. As he had guessed, there was nothing good about the Black family. He originally thought that he would have to wait a few more years, but he did not expect that Thomas Black would reveal his ambitions in just the second year of school. "Thomas Blake. Dean Snape, even though you are the dean, it is a bit rude to yell at an adult like this." As Theodore spoke, he reached out to take out his wand. Malfoy and Daphne were also eager to try, and they motivated many students. The lower ranks prevail over the upper ranks, this is Slytherin's fine tradition, the competent ones get the job. This small action was naturally noticed by Thomas, but now is not the time. "Theodore, you are so rude to the dean. Why don't you apologize to Dean Snape?" "Yes, sir." Theodore first bowed respectfully to Thomas, then looked at Snape calmly and spoke. "I am so sorry, Dean Snape. I would like to express my sincerest apologies to you. I don't think you would hold a grudge against a child like me." Snape's rage intensified when he saw this. The born evil brat from the Black family. "You must give me a satisfactory answer, Thomas." "It is natural, Dean Snape." Thomas stood up from the sofa, bowed slightly to Snape, and then spoke. "I just don't want to hear those ignorant and troll-like words. Time is precious. Why should we let an incompetent waste our precious time? In my opinion, instead of letting that idiot waste our precious time, it would be better for you to teach us the defense against the dark arts course. In our opinion, you are the rightful professor of defense against the dark arts, aren't you?" Snape nodded in agreement when he heard this. "Well said, 10 points for Slytherin. But you still have to attend the course. Lockhart is the professor brought back by Headmaster Dumbledore. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can go to him to express it instead of making trouble here. Snape said in a cold tone. Of course, I did something wrong. I am sorry for causing you trouble. I am here to apologize to you. By the way, Dean Snape, I hope you can come with me to find the Godfather then. This is your business, Thomas. I'm sorry, Dean, maybe you should look at this. As Thomas was speaking, the ring in his hand suddenly flashed a blue light, and a test paper appeared in his hand. This is. Lockhart asked us to do a test in this class. I used a little trick to get one out in advance. Please review it. Thomas said as he handed the test paper to Snape. Snape took the test paper with some confusion. In his opinion, even if Thomas said Lockhart was incompetent, a professor would not do something wrong on the test paper. 1. What is Gerald Lockhart's favorite color? 2. What was Gerald Lockhart's secret ambition? 3. What do you think is Gerald Lockhart's greatest achievement to date? 4. What is Gerald Lockhart's favorite food? 54. When is Gerald Lockhart's birthday? What would be his ideal birthday present? After Snape finished reading the entire test paper, his originally pale face had turned a little red with anger. Now, it seemed to him that Thomas's comments about Lockhart were a little too mild. In his opinion, this guy is just an incompetent clown with a giant brain, inability to control his poop and PS, and drooling all over the place. Call me later, now get the hell out of here and go to that useless gorilla's class. Of course, Dean Snape. By the way, do you think our scores are good? What score? You were just left behind by me for tutoring. That chicken with one leg will understand. Also, Slytherin uses his break time to study diligently, so he gets 20 extra points. After just a few words of conversation, it was found that Slytherin's score was not deducted because Thomas took the lead in skipping classes. Instead, it was increased by 30 points. Outside the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, Lockhart looked at a group of Slytherin second-year students led by Thomas, and a disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Students are students. No matter how famous they are, what's the use? In the end, they still have to come to the classroom and listen to my lectures. Lockhart's expression management was excellent. The second after Thomas and other Slytherin students entered the classroom, he put on a friendly smile on his face. Oh, look who's here, it's the Slytherin students. It doesn't matter if you are late, just take your seats. Take out my textbook, My Date with a Vampire, and turn to page 36. The plot right now is very exciting. Before Lockhart could finish his words, he noticed something was wrong, because Thomas and the other Slytherins did not have the teaching books he had mentioned. The corners of Lockhart's mouth twitched slightly, and he spoke with a stiff smile on his face. Where are your textbooks? None of the Slytherin students answered his question. What was even more exaggerated was that Malfoy took out a complete book of spells from his bag. And at Thomas's signal, his strongest mouth came online for Theodore. It's burned. Theodore said with disdain. This time Lockhart's face was completely embarrassed. This was more than just a slap on the face, this was actually pressing his face to the ground and rubbing it repeatedly. A Slytherin student humiliated the professor, Slytherin will lose 10 points. After hearing Lockhart's words, many of the Gryffindor little lions smiled with gloating joy on their faces. For the Gryffindors whose grades were negative at the beginning of the school year, the points deducted by Slytherin can naturally bring them a lot of comfort. Thomas Blake, I heard of your reputation before I entered Hogwarts. You're a good student, aren't you? Well, the professor now needs you, a good student, to come on stage to cooperate with me in a demonstration. I think you will not refuse. It begins, Lockhart's conspiracy, the troublesome pranksters. As long as Thomas comes on stage, he will release those creatures immediately. When Thomas is completely beaten to a pulp, he will appear as the savior. Chapter 63. Waving his wand and driving away the elves, he would become the new most popular person in Hogwarts. To be honest, he couldn't wait to see Thomas kneeling on the ground and shouting the great Professor Lockhart. Then who is the prey? Thomas raised the corner of his mouth, stood up and spoke. Of course, it's my pleasure, Professor. As Thomas walked up to the podium, Rawhart tore off the black cloth. A golden iron cage appeared in front of everyone, and a group of creatures with iron blue skin, about 8 inches tall, and small pointed faces were shaking the cage constantly. It's a Cornish pixie. Miss Know-It-All Hermione recognized the origins of these creatures immediately. Cornish pixie, what is this? Harry asked curiously. I read in a book that this is a kind of elf who likes to play pranks. Although they don't have wings, they can fly. The Cornish pixies were fond of grabbing the ears of unsuspecting people, lifting them up and throwing them onto treetops and rooftops. This also shows that despite their small size, pixies have great strength and are difficult to deal with. While Hermione was still explaining, Thomas had already opened the cage, but what Lockhart expected did not happen. All the Cornish elves huddled in a corner, shivering. An invisible pressure filled the entire classroom, making everyone except Thomas feel a deep sense of discomfort. This is the blood talent and pressure that Kukulkan awakened after taking the blood orchid. Oh, what I said before was not accurate. Besides Thomas, there were 3 other people in the venue who did not feel unwell. And these 3 people are Daphne, Malfoy, and Theodore. Malfoy and Theodore did not feel any discomfort. In their opinion, this was the true aura of a king. Thomas Blake was born a king, and now he is just beginning to show his power. If he wasn't afraid of affecting the adults' plans, Theodore would even want to stand up and celebrate. Daphne's face flushed, and I don't know what she was thinking. It seems that Professor Lockhart's little gadget is useless. Thomas said nonchalantly. Lockhart's face flushed red, he felt insulted. Thomas just closed the cage and sat back in his seat. The pressure from Kukulkan also dissipated, but even so, the remaining pressure remained, and the Kenwall elves remained huddled in the corner, not daring to move. This scene aroused an inexplicable curiosity in Lockhart's heart. With the mentality of giving it a try, he opened the door and started working. One can imagine the end of this, which is miserable. The nature of the Cornwater elves was instantly aroused and they rushed out of the cage. Seeing this, Lockhart's face instantly showed a look of horror, and he hastily pulled his wand out of his robe, but before he could point it at the Cornwater elf, he was pounced on and knocked to the ground. The wand was also taken away by the Cornwater elf. Damn it, UBD, give my wand back to me. It would be fine if Lockhart didn't speak, but as soon as he spoke, the characteristics of the Cornwall elf were aroused. Then 2 Cornwater elves, one on the left and one on the right, lifted Lockhart up high. No matter how hard Lockhart struggled, he couldn't break free from the Cornwater elves. Restraints. Chapter 64. Let me go now. Lockhart screamed, looking extremely ugly for a moment. The rest of the Cornwater elves were not idle either, and they turned their gazes directly to the Gryffindor students sitting nearby. Because of what happened to Thomas before, the elves in Cornwater were still in fear and did not dare to attack the Slytherin students. Screams and cries for help echoed throughout the defense against the dark arts classroom. Now the people watching the show have changed from Gryffindor to Slytherin. Many little snakes were delighted to appreciate the ugly appearance of the stupid lions. There was a loud sizzling sound, and a big hole was torn in Lockhart's luxurious wizard uniform. All of a sudden, the whole person was hanging in the air, swaying, and the screams he made were louder than those of the Gryffindor female students. It's time for this farce to end. Thomas's deep voice sounded, and Kukulkan's pressure instantly erupted again. The elves from Cornwater County who were originally flying around in the classroom instantly fell to the ground. As if he had encountered some ferocious beast, his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Lockhart, who had been pulled high up, suddenly fell to the ground and hurriedly crawled towards the direction of the wand. Such a big thing had happened today, and that was the only way. The collective amnesia of the entire classroom of students is also a problem, but it doesn't matter. As smart as he is, he has already thought of a response strategy. Just say it is a teaching accident, and tell others that it is a teaching accident. Combined with his inspiring speech, he believes that Dumbledore will understand him, and he doesn't mind even if he is fired. At worst, he could just continue writing books. Anyway, he came to Hogwarts to be a professor just to add another layer of glory to himself. He has even thought of a name for the novel, which is My Years as Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor at Hogwarts. It makes money, and it's not shameful. Lockhart kept moving his body on the ground, crawling towards the wand. With a monster like Thomas around, there was a risk of being interrupted if he cast the spell directly. He had to be very careful. Almost there, just a little bit more. Lockhart looked at the wand within reach and a smile of triumph appeared on his face. He might not be very proficient in other spells. However, Obliviate is his signature spell, which he uses as his most important skill. He is confident that he can beat anyone with this spell. Suddenly a pair of black leather shoes appeared in his sight. Looking up, he saw a black-haired boy looking down at him with a smile. "Damn it, you made me do this." Lockhart rolled over, grabbed his wand, and instantly pointed it at Thomas, reading loudly. "I forgot. Everyone is petrified." Before Lockhart could finish his spell, his body quickly began to stiffen. "What I just heard was a spell that started with forget." Professor Lockhart actually tried to cast a spell on his students. Harry said in surprise. "It should be oblivion. The memory of the person who is affected will be wiped out." Hermione explained with a bit of disappointment that today's class had shattered the glorious image of Lockhart in her mind. Taking another look at the table, the classic book she had read late at night by lamplight now seemed like a piece of shit. Thomas calmly stepped on Rawhart's hand holding the wand and spoke in a cold tone. "You just tried to cast a spell on me, didn't you, Professor Lockhart?" Lockhart, who was lying on the ground, was unable to utter a single word because of the petrification spell. He could only keep whimpering, making it impossible to understand what he meant. "Well, it seems that Professor Lockhart is thirsty. After working so hard to explain nonsense for half an hour, it is understandable that he would be thirsty. Professor Lockhart called me an excellent student before, so as an excellent student, I naturally have to help the professor solve his problems." As Thomas spoke, the blue light on the ring flickered, and a diamond-shaped blue gem and a bottle of dark purple potion appeared in his hand. "It's the reflection stone and the Verita serum," Hermione said in surprise. Harry and Ronald on the side seemed a little confused. Hermione sighed helplessly at the situation and explained. "As the names suggest, truth serum and photo stone are things that record images and make people tell the truth when they drink them." If Hermione understood it, how could Lockhart not understand it too? At this moment his eyes were full of fear, because he knew that what he had done was not honorable in the first place, and the unbreakable contract only bound the sellers from telling the truth. He did not restrain himself. He really could not imagine what he would become after drinking the potion. Before Lockhart could continue thinking, Thomas's voice sounded again. "Theodore, since you have offended Professor Lockhart in class, the task of feeding water this time will be given to you. You must make sure that Professor Lockhart drinks to his satisfaction. This will make up for your previous disrespect. Of course, please rest assured, sir, I will not let you down," Theodore said with a smirk on his face. He stood up, took the truth serum handed to him by Thomas and walked forward. Thomas stood where he was, waving his fingers and injecting his magic power into the image stone. Although he was not yet able to perform such a difficult task as casting spells without a wand. But there is no problem in simply controlling one's own magic power. The image stone received the magic power and was instantly activated. It flew out of Thomas's palm and floated in the air, emitting a faint blue light. In order to make it easier to feed the truth serum, Thomas also specially removed the petrification spell above Lockhart's neck. Feeling his restraints being released, Lockhart immediately put on a smile and spoke to Thomas in a flattering manner. "Well, Mr. Thomas, there isn't really any major conflict between us, right? I don't think there's any need to make things so awkward. If you think my course is not good, or you are not satisfied with it, I can approve your leave. I am a professor and have the authority to give extra credits. I now declare that Slytherin gets 50 points. How about you, can you untie me first?" Lockhart said in a flattering way. This was all he could do now. Merlin be sovereign. At this moment, he hoped very much that Thomas could be more practical. Only in this way can you be good, I am good, and everyone is good. Thomas lowered his eyes, leaned on the professor's special chair, crossed his legs, and spoke nonchalantly. "Professor Lockhart, to be honest, your suggestion is very generous, and I am quite satisfied with it." Chapter 65. "So, Mr. Thomas, can you let me go first?" Lockhart said excitedly. At this moment he seemed to see the dawn of hope. But the next second, Thomas's voice rang out again, kicking Lockhart directly from heaven to hell. No, I think Professor Lockhart misunderstood me. I said I was satisfied, but that doesn't mean I agree with your suggestion. To be honest, I really don't understand how a bug like you who plagiarizes other people's deeds can have the confidence to cooperate with me in negotiating terms. Theodore, Professor Lockhart is thirsty. I hope he can drink some water soon." "Yes, sir." No. "You can't do this, I'm a professor." "Thomas Blake, you can't." Bang! A crisp sound was heard, and a bright red slap mark instantly swelled up on Lockhart's face the next second. Lockhart looked at the skinny boy in front of him with disbelief. He really didn't expect that he would be beaten by a sophomore. This is such a great shame. Just as he was about to start the voice communication, he felt a sharp pain again. Theodore suddenly reached out and grabbed Lockhart's hair and lifted his head up. Stupid fellow, it is your honor that the Lord can talk to you, but you actually dare to make conditions to the Lord and question the Lord. You really deserve to die. Wave. As the sound rang out, Theodore bit off the cork of the truth serum and spat it on the ground. Theodore was seen holding Lockhart's head with one hand and frantically pouring medicine into his mouth with the other hand. Even though Lockhart struggled hard, he still drank half the bottle. Seeing that all the medicine in the bottle had been poured out, Theodore nodded in satisfaction, let go of Lockhart's hair, and threw the bottle where it lay. He turned around and bowed respectfully to Thomas, then walked behind Thomas and stood quietly. The werewolf's welding jump time has begun. Tell me about your glorious deeds, Professor Lockhart. Of course, no problem. It's nothing. Damn it, shut my mouth. Although Lockhart tried his best to restrain himself, his mouth was like a flood that had been released from a dam and kept on talking. From the story of meeting a wandering wizard just after graduation and buying him off at a low price, to his plans before going to class, nothing was left out. At this moment, many Gryffindor students have lost their faith. It is the nature of the little lions to love adventure. To be honest, they were very excited at the beginning of this class. Lockhart's story truly aroused their desire for adventure. But now? Haha. Weakness, cowardice, incompetence, plagiarism of other people's deeds, with all kinds of negative halos accumulated, many people's eyes have gradually changed from admiration at the beginning to looking at him as trash. After saying all this, Lockhart's eyes completely lost their luster and he collapsed to the ground. He knew that his life was completely over. With the ringing of the bell, today's farce finally came to an end. All the Slytherin students gathered behind Thomas and left the classroom in an orderly manner. But is the farce really over? No, this is the real beginning. Thomas just walked out of the Slytherin common room and ran into Professor McGonagall, who was in a hurry the next second. Professor McGonagall, what happened? I see you look very anxious. Professor McGonagall glanced at Thomas, reached out and ruffled Thomas's soft black hair, and said gently. Mrs. Norris was attacked. Oh my God, Merlin, who is so bold as to openly attack in Hogwarts? Thomas said in mock shock. The murderer is still unknown, but Thomas, it's best for you to stay in the Slytherin common room for now. After all, the murderer has not been caught yet. Hogwarts is not safe now. Thomas felt warm in his heart when he heard Professor McGonagall's concern, but he still shook his head and spoke in a firm tone. Can you take me with you, Professor McGonagall? I am also a member of Hogwarts. Madame Norris has been attacked. I would feel guilty if I did nothing. Thomas said sincerely. Professor McGonagall's heart softened when she saw this scene. Thomas Blake, what a good child he is. It's a pity that he was not sorted into Gryffindor. In the end, Professor McGonagall still couldn't defeat Thomas, so he could only sigh helplessly and speak. Okay, Thomas, you can come with me, but there is one condition. No matter what happens, you must stay behind me. Of course, Professor McGonagall. Thomas nodded and agreed happily. Soon, the two arrived at the crime scene. The classic trio was indeed present. Filch's face was filled with sadness and anger at this moment. There was a line of words written in blood on the wall, which meant that the secret room was opened. Those who are enemies of the air should be alert. Many people present looked at Thomas. There are many meanings of air, but Thomas is undoubtedly the most authoritative one. He has an unclear relationship with the Black family, Albus Godson, and the extremely large Saints organization. It's you who killed my Madame Norris. Filch roared and was about to rush towards Thomas. Without further words, the little snakes present drew their wands at the same time and pointed them at Filch. He is so brave that he will kill you in the next second if you dare to make a move. After seeing this scene, Filch straightened up, but his face became even gloomier. He was just a squib and had no ability to fight against wizards. The only professors present were Snape and Headmaster Dumbledore. One is the head of Slytherin, the other is Thomas's godfather. Even Professor McGonagall protected Thomas at the first moment. Although he did not draw his wand, it can explain a lot. For a moment, Filch felt his blood run cold and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Yes, What else could he do? Although he is usually so arrogant towards students, he is also very self-aware. He was just a squib. Without Dumbledore, he would not even be worthy of touching the wizarding world and could only live in the Muggle world. He hated himself for being a squib, hated himself for not being able to avenge Madame Norris with his own hands. He firmly believed that if he had magic power, he would be able to match or even surpass Dumbledore. Chapter 66. No one knew what Filch was thinking at the moment. If they knew, they would only say, "You think too much. Put down your wand, Mr. Filch. As the caretaker of Hogwarts, your behavior is extremely rude." Thomas spoke calmly, without any guilt in his tone. The next second, the Slytherin students collectively saluted Thomas and put away their wands. They did not show any intention of apologizing to Filch from beginning to end. In fact, this is a normal phenomenon. Slytherin is a house that values purebloods above all else, and they may not necessarily look down upon ordinary half-blood wizards. How could he possibly look down upon a squib who was no different from a Muggle? Dumbledore saw the grief-stricken Filch sighing helplessly and decided to step forward and act as a peacemaker. "Mr. Filch, you don't have to be too sad. I can sense that Mrs. Norris's vital signs have not disappeared. It's still alive, but its body has been petrified." At the same time, Lockhart happened to be freed from the petrified state, passed by here, and saw this scene. He sensed a chance for revenge. He just jumped out and pointed at Thomas. "That's right, Headmaster Dumbledore. I want to report that Thomas Black insulted the professor and even used petrification magic on him." Professor McGonagall standing by was stunned at the moment. She couldn't believe that Thomas, such a polite and respectful child, would do such a thing. Just as she was about to open her mouth to retort, Thomas spoke up. "Yes, I did it, because in my eyes, a clown who plagiarizes other people's deeds is not worthy of being my professor." Filch on the side spoke loudly as if he had received some revelation. "Principal Dumbledore, you heard it too." Thomas Black admitted that he performed the petrification magic. He was the one who hurt Mrs. Norris. He should be fired. Thomas frowned slightly when he saw this scene. He was wondering if he had given this squib too much face. Thomas secretly decided in his heart that he would arrange for the Weasley twins to go to Filch tonight to give him a wonderful and unforgettable night. Thomas stood up and bowed respectfully to several professors and Dumbledore, then looked at Filch with cold eyes and said, "I didn't do what happened to Madame Norris. If I did, I would admit it. I dared to petrify and insult wizards, and I dared to admit it in front of Headmaster Dumbledore and 2 professors. Could it be that Mr. Filch thinks a squib's pet cat is more valuable than a wizard?" Dumbledore and the other 2 knew that Thomas had completely fallen out with Filch. At the same time, I felt a little helpless. "Can't you, Adam, just live a good life? The cat is fine, so we could just say a few words to each other and let it go. If you jump out now, you are courting death." Suddenly, the sound of students' discussions could be heard around, and most of them were in support of Thomas. Filch always had a bad face and liked to humiliate the little wizards for pleasure. Due to their positions, the little wizards would generally endure it and would not have a direct conflict with Filch. But as these pressures squeeze more, the stronger the rebound will be. That's right, how could Lord Thomas cast a spell specifically for a cat? That cat doesn't deserve it at all. That's right, I'm just an administrator. How can a mere squib be more valuable than us wizards? I support Master Thomas. Support. Chapter 67. P.S. Happy May Day, brothers. Unfortunately, as a social animal I still have to work overtime, but I have finished today's chapter in advance, so please urge me to update, please give me good comments, thank you so much. After dealing with Filch, the only clown left on the field was Lockhart. Thomas was a fair man and would never favor one over another. Everyone had been slapped in the face. I had originally wanted to let Lockhart leave the academy with some dignity, but now it seems that is no longer necessary. As the ring flashed a blue light, the image in the photo stone began to be projected. It is indeed a second success. This time, because so many students gathered together, the exposure was even more popular. The scene reappeared, and many students, including the professor, sighed. Professor McGonagall frowned even more. She now fully agreed with Thomas's approach. If it were not for her upbringing, she would have scolded him. It is simply misleading for such a wizard to come to Hogwarts school to be a professor. At this moment, Lockhart could not stay in Hogwarts even for a second. He immediately turned around and prepared to pack up and leave this sad place. In the office, Lockhart was wiping his tears and nose while packing his bag. It hurts. It hurts so much. With great hopes and visions, he came to Hogwarts. But he could only leave in shame. The original intention to disgust Thomas was not only unsuccessful, but also ended up losing more than gaining. He won't be able to make it in the wizarding world in the future, but that's no big deal. He has saved a lot of gold galleons by selling books over the years, which will definitely be enough for him to spend his old age in peace. But in my heart, I always feel lost. Boom boom boom. There was a knock on the door. Lockhart looked towards the door with some curiosity. He couldn't understand why anyone would come to see him since his vest had been torn off. Even his die-hard fans should have given up. With this curious mentality, Lockhart walked forward and opened the door of the office, and a thin boy with black hair appeared in front of him. Lockhart could never forget this face, nor the humiliation and insults he had suffered not long ago. "What are you doing here? Come and see my joke." "Yes, I admit that you won, but I didn't lose either. Even if I can't sell books, I can still live well." Lockhart said loudly. This was his last stubbornness. "What a noisy rubbish. If it weren't for the order from the adults, I wouldn't even bother to come to you," Theodore said with a contemptuous tone. "Is it that adult? He is willing to give me a chance." Lockhart said this in an excited tone, even the way he addressed Thomas changed unconsciously. Although he had given himself many psychological hints before, people are always dependent. He had long been accustomed to the glory, so how could he bear to suddenly lose everything? It's better to live a miserable life than to die, isn't it? Go away, trash. Yes, yes. Just like that, a strange scene appeared. An adult wizard followed a second-year wizard with a flattering look on his face. Boom boom boom. "Master Thomas, I have brought the person here," Theodore said in a respectful tone. "Come in." Cats. As the door of the room opened, Lockhart could see everything inside the room clearly. It was a dilapidated abandoned classroom. There were many such abandoned classrooms in Hogwarts. There were about a dozen students in the classroom, 5 Gryffindors and 6 or 7 Slytherins. Thomas sat in the main seat in the center of the classroom. "Welcome, Mr. Lockhart." No, sir, I really don't deserve the title of Mr. Sir, you can just call me Lockhart." Lockhart said this with a flattering look on his face, and Thomas was also very satisfied with Lockhart's performance. "Very good, Lockhart. To be honest, your ability is indeed not that great, but as long as you are a human being, you always have your shining points, right? For example, you are very good at packaging and creating your own image." Yes, my lord. "Lockhart, I can give you a chance. I will destroy the photo stone and make sure that what happened to you today will not be spread outside of Hogwarts. You should know that my godfather is Headmaster Dumbledore. I have the ability." "Of course, sir, no matter what you want me to do, I will do it without hesitation, even if it means going through fire and water," Lockhart said excitedly. Thomas waved his hand and said nonchalantly. "Don't worry, I don't need you to go through fire and water. There will naturally be someone to do this. Professionals should just do their professional work." "So what do you mean?" "I need a promoter, are you willing?" Of course I do, sir. Your greatness should be known to all wizards in Eagle, no. All wizards in the world." "Great, I like working with smart people." Thomas had a smile on his face, and with his handsome face, Lockhart swore that if he were a female wizard, he would be fascinated by Thomas at this moment. Just as he was about to imagine a bright future, Thomas's next move made his face freeze. Yes, Thomas had already taken out his wand and pointed it at him at close range. Lockhart had not observed it carefully before and just thought that the tip of Thomas's wand was green because something was not cleaned or because of the wood. And now, a strong breath of death spread out from the tip of the staff, enveloping Lockhart's whole body. No matter how useless he is still a wizard who survived the dark period of Voldemort. How could he not be familiar with the aura on the tip of the wand? The killing curse. How many people must have been killed and how much blood must have been stained on the hands to achieve this effect? Even the wand was corroded. The dead memories began to attack Lockhart's brain frantically. Because he had been busy with his new work, My Zombie Lover, he was not very concerned about the situation in the outside world. But he still keeps buying every issue of the Daily Prophet. A picture of the cover instantly appeared in his mind. The saint took away the heir of the Black family. Thomas also noticed Lockhart's nervousness and spoke in a calm tone. Relax, I don't want to kill you, otherwise you wouldn't be alive now, right? Yes, sir, I was foolish. Lockhart spoke hastily. Hold out your arms. Ah? Sir, this. My patience isn't very good. Yes. Rawhart seemed to have accepted his fate. He gritted his teeth, rolled up his sleeves, and extended his arm. Chapter 68. No matter what Thomas Blake wanted to do, he had no power to resist, right? As the saying goes, since you can't resist, you might as well just enjoy it. Come on, my lord, don't have to pity me. As soon as Lockhart said this, the atmosphere in the abandoned classroom grew colder. If you don't want to die, maybe you should learn to shut up. Theodore said in a fierce tone. Daphne and Malfoy beside Thomas had already drawn their wands, ready to help this idiot wake up. Okay, Mr. Lockhart was just playing a little joke on us. Thomas spoke in a gentle tone, and the originally tense atmosphere in the room instantly returned to its previous calm. Then let the ceremony begin. Thomas waved the wand gently, and the next second a dark green light shot out from the wand, scaring Lockhart so much that he trembled continuously. He also wanted to step back, but due to excessive shock, his feet had lost feeling. Lockhart could only watch as the dark green light gradually climbed up his arm, and then slowly formed into a giant python with wings and a bloody mouth. That's right, this is the Quetzalcoatl blood curse that Thomas adapted from the Whitebird blood curse. Except for a few people from Slytherin, the three kids, including the Weasley twins, all gasped and their eyes began to become uncertain. Lockhart, since you have successfully graduated from Hogwarts, you should recognize what this is. Don't think about running away after you get out. The world outside is not as peaceful as the academy. The world is so big, it's normal for a few unlucky wizards to die every day, isn't it? Yes, sir, I will definitely remember your instructions. Lockhart quickly spoke to express his loyalty, because he knew that from this moment on, his life was completely in the hands of this young man. Stand back, I will look forward to your results. Yes, sir. Lockhart bowed to Thomas and left the room. So, will you join me? Thomas spoke in a calm tone, with no emotion to be heard. All the Slytherin members stood quietly behind Thomas. Weighing the pros and cons and pursuing rights has always been the creed of Slytherin, and they have long been firmly tied to Thomas's ship. If Thomas lives, they can gain power and fame, if Thomas dies, they will all be buried with him. Therefore, the only people who had not made a choice were the 5 Gryffindors. Fred and George looked at each other, clenched their hands involuntarily, and then immediately loosened them, as if they had made up their minds. Of course, Master Thomas, have you forgotten the contract? We have always been yours, Master Thomas. George and Fred spoke in unison. In fact, ever since Thomas approached them, they had already anticipated this day would come, but they never thought it would happen so soon. Originally, they had expected that the showdown would not happen until Thomas was at least in the 4th or 5th grade. So you should also know what you will face in the future, right? Perhaps you will die, or perhaps Weasley can regain his former glory and fame. I actually think highly of you. What do you think, Percy? Thomas said casually, turning the ring on his finger. From the dark corner of the abandoned classroom, a figure slowly walked out. The visitor was none other than Gryffindor's prefect, Percy Weasley. Percy, why are you here? Aren't you afraid of losing points to the academy for wandering at night? The 5 Gryffindors all had surprised expressions on their faces. They had never expected that Percy Weasley, the Gryffindor prefect who always regarded grades as his life, would appear here. But the faces of the Slytherins were still very calm. It was obvious that they had known about Percy's existence for a long time. Percy Weasley ignored his brother's questions and just walked quietly to Thomas and performed a standard wizard salute. The Arabic numeral 3 that slowly formed in the bone ring on his hand also represented his camp. It's all for the greater good, my lord. Percy Weasley is willing to serve you. Thomas nodded in satisfaction, then looked at the Weasley twins again and spoke. Now, tell me your real choice. I will respect your opinion. The Weasley twins both had a wry smile on their faces, as if they had no way out. Since there is no way out, then just go all the way. Fred Weasley, I am willing to serve you, my lord. George Weasley, at your service, my lord. 2 rings flew out of Thomas's hand and into the hands of the Weasley twins. The flames in the ring slowly formed the Arabic numerals 5 and 6. Now, it's time for the trio to choose. Hermione stepped out first, looked at Thomas with a determined gaze and spoke. Hermione Granger, I am willing to serve you, my lord. She knew that she didn't have any so-called excellent bloodline, nor did she have any connections or abilities, and she wasn't pretty. If it weren't for Thomas, she might not have any friends in Gryffindor until now. Mr. Thomas always treated her with a smile and gentleness. Since Mr. Thomas needs help, it is her duty as well. Another flash of blue light passed by, and a bone ring inlaid with a ruby floated to Hermione's finger. The moment it was put on, the flames in it slowly formed the Arabic number 7. I need to think about it some more. Sorry, Thomas. Me too. Harry and Ronald spoke one after another. Arrogant. How dare you refuse, my lord? You are so brave. Theodore immediately drew his wand, ready to give Harry and Ronald the melon-eating trick he had just learned. Except for Hermione and the Weasley twins, everyone else's faces showed more or less dissatisfaction and anger. Ronald felt like he was really crazy at the moment. If he didn't hug that huge thigh, what on earth was he doing to Harry? However, the words have been spoken, just like spilled water, it is difficult to take them back. If I change my words now, wouldn't I be a treacherous person? Ronald had no choice but to suppress his fear and hide behind Harry. Harry 6 Thomas waved his hand, motioning Theodore to put down his wand, then turned around and continued speaking with a smile. It's okay, Harry and Ronald. I've said it before. I will support your decision. Chapter 69. Since you need to consider it, then I support it. However, the next period of time will be for our small organization to hold meetings and discuss. If it's convenient for you, can you please leave first? Of course not, Thomas. After Harry finished speaking, he turned and left the room, and Ronald hurriedly followed. Why, Harry, why did you refuse Thomas's invitation? Obviously this is a really cool thing to do, and my brothers are all joining in. Oh, I see. Do you think it's embarrassing to call you Sir Thomas? No, Ronald, I just had a bad feeling about it. I feel that this organization is not simple, so Ronald interrupted Harry before he could finish his words. Forget it, Harry, I support you. We are best friends after all. At worst, we can just set up an organization. Who knows, by then, you might have to call me Sir Ronald, ha 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 ha. Ronald said carelessly. Thank you, Ronald. Harry said with some emotion. He knew Ronald was trying to help him channel his worries. But it was strange, he and Thomas were obviously friends, so why did he refuse, and what was the bad premonition? In the abandoned classroom, Thomas glanced at everyone present with satisfaction. In his second year in the wizarding world, he finally had his own team. Although he is the successor of Grindelwald and Dumbledore and has countless people under him, the truly important things should always be left to people you trust, right? The basilisk has begun to move, but it is destined not to last long. Hogwarts will not allow such a thing that threatens students to exist. So he had to hurry up. Sir, I'm actually curious, what is the name of our organization? That's right, sir. The Weasley twins were the first to ask questions. Thomas nodded. Facing this problem, he had already thought of how to brainwash them, oh no, how to publicize the organization's creed. Everyone must be curious about why the name of the organization is Fatui. You may be confused or even a little disgusted by this name. But you have to understand that the truth is often in the hands of a few people. That's the one who makes the rules. Although we may still be very weak now, one day, we will become the only ones who make the rules in the entire magic world. Except for the fool, that is, me, the Fatui has a total of 13 CEOs, and the numbers on the rings in your hands represent your respective seats. It's all for the greater good. Theodore's eyes were fanatical, and he was secretly glad that he had not chosen the wrong person. Malfoy slowly clenched his hand. His number was 1, and so was his seat. His cousin trusted him, and he absolutely could not let his cousin down. Percy Weasley clenched his hands involuntarily. He had long been fed up with other people's cold stares and ridicule. Now that he had the opportunity to hold power, he would never let go. Percy, I need you to contact Professor Flitwick and invite him to be the advisor for our club. Professor Flitwick is a multiple-time dual tournament champion. I believe he would be interested in our club. As for the reason, fighting against the evil and unknown dark forces is a good idea. Mrs. Norris has been attacked, and the entire Hogwarts is in danger, so we need to increase our strength. No problem, my lord. Percy replied in a respectful tone. Draco, I need you to call on and unify the management of the Slytherin members. Some things must be mastered. Just leave it to me, cousin. I won't let you down. Malfoy said excitedly. Hermione, I need you to go to the library and look up some offensive, but not forbidden, spells. Thomas turned around and continued giving orders. There was no other way. He only knew dark magic and some basic spells. Not to mention that Dumbledore might not agree. Even if he agreed, would everyone start to eat the big melon? What if everyone had schizophrenia? At present, Hogwarts is still full of students, and it is difficult to resist the erosion brought by the dark magic. Moreover, there are many examples of adult wizards being corrupted and turned into lunatics. Thomas dare not take the risk. No problem, Mr. Thomas, leave it to me. Hermione nodded and said confidently that looking up information was her strong point. George, Fred, you will be responsible for the publicity for Gryffindor. No problem. Leave it to us, sir. George and Fred said with a smile. Apart from anything else, the two of them were very popular in Gryffindor. Thomas stared calmly at the wooden door in front of him. Everything was ready, just waiting for the east wind to blow. P.S. The establishment of a club in each college requires a professor to participate as an advisor. Fatui, the Fool, Thomas Blake first seat, Draco Malfoy code name, Golden Peacock second seat, Daphne Greengrass code name, Laurel third place, Percy Weasley code name, The Politician fourth seat, Theodore Nott code name, Blade fifth seat, Fred Weasley code name, Gemini sixth seat, George Weasley code name, Gemini seventh seat, Hermione Granger code name, Know-It-All eighth seat, tentative code, tentative ninth seat. As the organization got going, soon the gears of the entire Hogwarts began to turn. First of all, the Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts, Ronald Lockhart, had to leave Hogwarts due to illness, resulting in the suspension of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. The second reason was that Thomas Blake, worried about the safety of his students, formed a campus dueling club called Fatui, intending to effectively improve the students' strength, and invited Professor Flitwick to be the instructor. The scope of recruitment is open to the 4 major colleges in Hogwarts. After hearing the news, Professor Filiway readily agreed without any hesitation. As a professional champion of multiple wizard duel competitions, Professor Filiway has always been very interested in these things. In addition, the reason Thomas proposed was to help everyone improve their strength so as to face more unknown dangers, and Professor Filiway felt obliged to do so. With this powerful combination, it immediately attracted the attention of people from the 4 major colleges. The first was Slytherin. Without any hesitation, the entire college joined this school club. Next was Gryffindor. I don't know if it was to compete with Slytherin or what, but although not all of them joined, at least more than half of them joined. Many students from Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff also came after hearing the news. Chapter 70. Lemon Sherbet. As Thomas spoke the command, the gargoyle statue at the gate moved away. Godfather. Thomas bowed respectfully to Dumbledore, who was sitting in the main seat, and spoke. You are here, Thomas, take a seat. Dumbledore raised his glasses on his nose with his hand and smiled. Anything to drink? Lemonade or chocolate tea? Lemonade, please. Thomas thought for a moment and then answered. Dumbledore nodded, took out 2 glasses of lemonade and a large jar of sugar cubes, and with a small spoon in one hand, began to add the lethal dose. He stopped only when the big jar of sugar cubes was half empty, then scooped up another spoonful of sugar cubes, aiming at Thomas's lemonade. After seeing this scene, Thomas hurriedly stood up, picked up the glass of lemonade that had not yet been added with sugar, and spoke quickly. No need, Godfather, I can do it myself. All right. Even though Dumbledore looked very disappointed, Thomas would never hand him the cup of water. If I didn't give you a cup, I would just feel disappointed. But if I really gave you a cup, it would be fatal. As Thomas spoke, he picked up the water glass and took a sip. Damn, I miscalculated. A sweet and greasy taste exploded in his mouth. Looking up, Dumbledore was whistling with a wandering look in his eyes. This lasted for about a minute before Dumbledore spoke first, tapping his head lightly with his hand. Hey, I almost forgot, Thomas, I added syrup to the lemonade ahead of time. Please forgive an old man's mistake. Thomas looked at the grinning Dumbledore in front of him and couldn't help but roll his eyes. If you want to talk about the old man's mistakes, he won't believe you at all. If it was any other Gryffindor he would believe it, but you, Dumbledore, haha. If there are 100 Gryffindors, then Dumbledore definitely has 99.99 of them. And you, what the hell? You are over 100 years old and you still think you are a beautiful girl, right? But having said that, what else could Thomas do? Of course he chose to forgive him. It's okay, Godfather. I understand. Thomas said with a wry smile. Dumbledore nodded, then took a swig of the glass of lemonade piled with sugar cubes on the table beside him, a satisfied smile on his face. By the way, Thomas, Gerald Lockhart was forced to resign due to his illness. Hogwarts will be without a defense against the dark arts professor for a short period of time. I'm afraid this course cannot be carried out. Isn't this just right, Godfather? I don't believe you don't know the true face of that clown. Tell me the truth, taking his course is a waste of life. Thomas said nonchalantly, not feeling the slightest bit of shame for kicking the professor out of Hogwarts. But Thomas, he's the only one who submitted an application for employment this year. Dumbledore said with some regret. So Godfather, you called me here today just to discuss the defense against the dark arts professor. If that's the reason, I think our dean would be very willing to take on this position. Even if you ask him to take on 2 jobs at the same time, like a top, spinning 24 hours a day, I think he will be happy to accept it. No. Thomas, Severus cannot be the defense against the dark arts professor. Dumbledore said firmly, directly rejecting Thomas's proposal. This action made Thomas wonder if there was any buff associated with the position of defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts. Otherwise, why are there always professors who are replaced every year, and Dean Snape is strictly prohibited from holding the position? While Thomas was still thinking, Dumbledore's next words shocked him so much that his face changed drastically. Thomas, I've made up my mind. Then I will go inform Dean Snape now, Godfather. Thomas was about to get up and leave the office. No, I have decided that starting from tomorrow, you will take over this position until I find the next person willing to be the defense against the dark arts professor. Ah, this is not good, Godfather. You also know that the magic I know is a bit, you know. Have you learned all the counter spells? Yes. That's no problem. Come on, I believe you can do it well. Lockhart just resigned, so his salary for this school year will be given to you. Thomas wanted to continue to refuse, but Dumbledore suddenly waved his hand, and a powerful magic gushed out instantly, pushing him out of the headmaster's office. So, what is this all about? Thomas shook his head helplessly, turned around and left the scene. The Fatui's plan went very smoothly. In just a few days, most of the Hogwarts students had joined this club. Thomas, the mastermind of all this, was now quietly enjoying the beautiful sunshine and afternoon tea in the courtyard of Hogwarts. Everything is so peaceful. Suddenly, a slender figure appeared in the courtyard. The badger-shaped badge and yellow scarf on his chest indicated that he was from Hufflepuff. My lord is resting now. If you have anything to do, you can register first. When my lord is free, he will naturally summon you. Theodore stood in front of the man alone and spoke in a cold tone, holding the wand tightly in his hand, looking ready to take action at any time. Well, please register me first. If Mr. Thomas is free, I can come back. The man spoke gently, not showing any displeasure at Theodore's actions. Name: Cedric Diggory, from Hufflepuff. Very good. I will write down your name. If the Lord is free, he will summon you. Theodore said in a cold tone. In his opinion, the adult's power was as powerful as a dragon ascending to the sky, and those who wanted to curry favor with the adults were countless. He only registered on the surface and did not actually inform Thomas. In his opinion, these ants were not worthy of the adult's trouble. Let him come, Theodore. After a calm voice, the rebellious look on Theodore's face disappeared instantly. He turned around quickly, bowed in the direction of the pavilion, and spoke in a respectful tone. Yes, sir. After doing this series of actions, Theodore looked at Cedric Diggory again, and his face returned to its cold look. Come with me. You are lucky that the Lord is willing to summon you. Be careful with your attitude when talking to the Lord. If you dare to be disrespectful to an adult, I will kill you immediately, even if it's in Hogwarts now. Those who have offended the adults don't deserve to live. Chapter 71. This is natural, please rest assured. Cedric Diggory smiled as he thought that Theodore was just behaving like a child seeking attention. There's no point in him competing with a child, right? This is indeed the case. Theodore's mother died when he was very young, and his father was a Death Eater. He didn't care about Theodore at all, and his head was full of fantasies about the glory of pure bloods. Theodore was simply left to be raised by the house elf. He followed Voldemort every day, eating melons all day long, and his already dull brain became even more worrying. When he occasionally saw Theodore, he would only promote Voldemort's pure blood ideals and concepts, and would not pay any attention to Theodore's mental condition. As a result, Thomas emitted a little light to Theodore, and he simply regarded Thomas as his son. Thomas sat quietly on the recliner, watching the two people walking towards the pavilion in the distance. At first, he didn't want to care about the loyalty of ordinary students. After all, as long as he had enough pawns, he only needed to maintain his position and give a speech or two occasionally. In Thomas's eyes, wizards who are not among the 13 seats are just the lowest grade of currency on the gambling table. That's why he acquiesced to Theodore's action. Until he heard the name, Cedric Diggory. In Goblet of Fire, a pitiful character. He is sunny, brave, and gentle. In the third event, he was about to be the first to win the trophy, but unfortunately he was entangled by a giant spider. When Harry helped him get rid of the giant spider, he thought that Harry was the final winner, so he used all his perseverance to let Harry take the trophy and gave up the honor that Hufflepuff Academy had not received in hundreds of years. However, the trophy was replaced with a portkeyat, and they were dragged to Riddle Hangleton Cemetery, where Peter Pettigrew, who had been waiting for a long time, brutally murdered Cedric. This is also a regret for many people. The 13 seats of the Fatui have two extreme tempers. Either their minds are too active, or they are like a pool of stagnant water. They just need the addition of such a tempering agent. In return for his loyalty, Thomas will naturally guarantee Cedric Diggory's life, so why not go find Ronald first and crush Pettigrew? If I offer a little more compensation in gold galleons, Ronald will probably agree. While Thomas was thinking, the two of them came under the pavilion. Sir, someone is coming. Theodore said respectfully. Thomas nodded, then pointed to a chair beside him and spoke to Cedric Diggory. Please sit down. You're welcome. Thanks. Cedric Diggory nodded, then sat down directly with a warm smile on his face. Hello, my name is Cedric Diggory, from Hufflepuff, and I'm currently a 5th-year student. What is your purpose? Thomas did not succumb to Cedric Diggory's gentle advances, but went straight to the point. I want to join the Fatui. Cedric Diggory said softly. Thomas nodded and spoke calmly. That's no problem, of course. The Fatui are open to all students at Hogwarts. You can go find Percy or Malfoy and register directly. There is no threshold to become a member of the Fatui. You know that's not what I'm talking about. Oh, so what do you want to say? The topic had already gotten to the point. Thomas picked up the tea in front of him and took a sip, quietly looking at the handsome man in front of him. Slytherin and Gryffindor both have seats at the Forum of Fools, and Hufflepuff wants to join as well. Cedric Diggory, I can see that you are an intelligent man. Do you know anything about the Daily Prophet? Yes, I am a loyal fan of the Daily Prophet. I read every issue. Then you also know that the saint took me away. Yes. So, you also know what my real purpose is. Yes. Even so, do you still want to join the Fatui? Once you step into the core, you will never be able to exit. Until you die, your life, including your family, will be connected to me. Once I die or fail, you, as a core member, and your family will be destroyed. When you stare into the abyss also stares into you. So, let me ask you again, are you sure you want to join the Fatui? Thomas said this in a calm tone, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. I do. I believe in my own judgment. Although you seem cold and cruel, your decisions are made with the goal of ensuring the safety of the majority of people. Cedric Diggory said in a serious tone. Thomas nodded, took out the bone ring and threw it to Cedric Diggory. From today on, you will be the 8th seat out of 13. Code name, Son. Hufflepuff will naturally have a place among the Fatui. You will not regret your choice, Cedric. You will bring honor to your school and family. It's all for the greater good. Cedric Diggory nodded, then put the bone ring with the flowing number 8 on it on his hand. The next night, the screams came again, and the number of petrified victims increased by 1. The target was none other than Colin Creevey from Gryffindor, a member of the Hogwarts press department. Fear once again swept through Hogwarts, but in comparison, the students who joined the Fatui were relatively calm. This could also be due to the confidence that comes with the boost in magic. As a result, the registration office of the Fatui once again welcomed a wave of enrollment. In addition to the petrification incident, there was another shocking incident. Harry Potter, our savior, changed his previous lazy study state and his grades suddenly improved by leaps and bounds. He also won praise from many professors, and even Snape, who used to spray venom at him all the time, reduced the amount of venom he sprayed. Many people believe that Harry Potter himself is the incarnation of the savior, and it was probably during this crisis that he finally awakened. But the Slytherins did not think so. In their opinion, no matter how hard the so-called savior tried, it would be useless and he would still be no match for a finger of Lord Thomas. Only Thomas knew the real reason: Harry Potter had come into contact with Voldemort's Horcrux. In fact, Thomas was also very interested in the notebook, but unfortunately, due to the protection of the system buff, he only had access to it for a moment. Chapter 72. I'm afraid that Voldemort's soul will be shattered like the time with Slytherin's locket. He can't take action now, as the Fatui's enrollment has reached a critical stage. He needed to let the fear continue to spread so as to unify Hogwarts and complete the task assigned by the system. Hogwarts would be his boot camp. While Thomas was still thinking, there was a knock on the door in front of him. "My lord, it is I, Theodore, and I have something interesting to report to you which will surely interest you. Come in." Accompanied by a clicking sound, the wooden door of the dormitory was slowly pushed open. Theodore strode into the dormitory, then gave Thomas a wizard salute and spoke. "My lord, Malfoy has challenged the traitor Harry Potter to a duel." Draco challenged Harry to a duel. "Yes, sir. Let's go and take a look together," Thomas said as he stood up from the bed and walked out with a smile on his face. "You have to know that the current Malfoy has been transformed and is no longer the weakling in the original drama." Thomas really wanted to see how much Malfoy's strength had improved. Not to mention the powerful killing spells he taught Malfoy privately, even the basic spells Malfoy practiced very well. He was looking forward to Malfoy's performance. The Fatui's dual practice field was already packed with people, and both sides had already put up victory banners. But there were only a few Gryffindors on Harry's side. After all, most of the Gryffindors had already joined the Fatui, and they had all seen how hard Malfoy worked. It is no exaggeration to say that Malfoy's strength is definitely on par with those top fourth-year students. Although Harry Potter's sudden rise and the halo of his Gryffindor identity are dazzling, the hard conditions are there. They didn't know what to say. So they could only stand on the neutral side and cheer for Harry silently in their hearts. After all, he was a Gryffindor, and they didn't want to lose to Slytherin. "Potee, you shameless traitor! Although my cousin doesn't care, it doesn't mean I won't pursue it. Today I will let you see the gap between us. Without your cousin's support, you are nothing," Malfoy said viciously, and it was obvious that he was very unhappy with Harry's rejection of Thomas's invitation last time. Harry wanted to explain something, but he was just a child after all, and he was a little angry after seeing Malfoy's actions. "I simply decided not to explain and plan to talk it over after I win." Malfoy and Harry both placed their wands on their chests and bowed slightly. Then he turned and walked backwards. The competition began with Professor Flitwick's call. Malfoy used the spell first. The black snake comes out of the hole. A pitch-black python suddenly appeared on the field, opened its bloody mouth, spit out its tongue, and swam towards Harry. Obviously, Harry didn't expect Malfoy to make such a big move, and because there were people watching and cheering nearby, he was very nervous. One accidentally fell to the ground. The audience supporting Malfoy immediately burst into amazing cheers. To them, the outcome was obvious. "What kind of savior is this, Pot? He's just a little brat who can't even hold a magic wand." The audience supporting Harry were pale. They had never expected that this seemingly thrilling game would end in such a hasty way. Number plus. Suddenly a strange sound came out of Harry Potter's mouth, and the python, which was originally very close to Harry and had already taken an attacking posture, suddenly changed its position and swam towards Malfoy. Malfoy did not panic as in the original book, and his expression remained very calm. "So that's it, you are the Slytherin heir, is that your reason to reject your cousin? But I won't admit it, Pot. The flames are blazing. Fire instantly spurted out from Malfoy's wand, hitting the python's body and instantly burning it into a dried snake. But Malfoy did not stop his operation and continued to chant the spell. Hanging Fuchsia. A strong gravitational force lifted Harry Potter into the air, head down. A feeling of cerebral congestion instantly swept through Harry Potter's brain. In addition, Harry Potter's wand also fell to the ground at this moment. Harry's wand was also on the ground and he could not cast spells. The game was over without any suspense. Malfoy raised his head at a classic 45-degree angle and spoke with a disdainful tone. Well, like I said, Pot, you are nothing without my cousin. What the hell is the identity of heir? The only one who can truly represent Slytherin is my cousin Thomas Black. The golden bell falls to the ground. As Malfoy's voice ended, there was a bang, and Harry fell suddenly from a high place and hit the ground. Cheers rang out, and the winner was Malfoy. But everyone was more concerned about another point at the moment, what Malfoy had said before. Harry Potter is the heir of Slytherin. In the wizarding world, those who can speak Parseltongue, also known as Parseltongue, are generally evil dark wizards. This ability is also the unique skill and signature of Slytherin. It was also the language once used by Voldemort. There has been an ancient legend circulating in Hogwarts. The 4 founders of Hogwarts had great differences of opinion on recruiting students. Slytherin believes that only wizards with the purest bloodline can unleash the greatest power of spells. He also only agreed to allow pure-blood wizards to join his academy, which is the origin of Slytherin's pure-blood supremacy. He came from the quagmire, he was power-hungry, he was full of ambition, he was strong and calm, he was elegant and self-sustaining, he never regretted, he was Salazar Slytherin. Before he left Hogwarts, he said that one day, the heir of Slytherin would open the secret chamber and obtain the treasure he left behind. And follow his will to eliminate those wizards with impure blood in Hogwarts. But thousands of years have passed and nothing like this has happened, so everyone has just regarded this sentence as a legend. Unexpectedly, it actually came true. Harry Potter is the heir of Slytherin. It was he who petrified Mrs. Norris and the poor student from Gryffindor. For a moment, everyone looked at him with strange eyes. After all, Parseltongue was a talent that only belonged to the Dark Lord, and not everyone could learn it. Chapter 73. Malfoy did a great job. This is how we should teach this ungrateful BDA lesson. Do you really think that you can refuse the adults by using the title of savior? You are such an ungrateful fellow and you should be crushed to death like a bug. Theodore said excitedly. He wished that it was himself instead of Malfoy standing on the field at this moment. Thomas watched the scene on the field calmly, feeling somewhat relieved. Malfoy's growth made him see a different transformation in the future. As for what Malfoy said about Harry, Thomas didn't care. The reason why he invited Harry to join was not just because of Harry Potter's title as the savior in the prophecy. Fame is no longer important to him now, especially since Voldemort, like Grindelwald, is known as the Dark Lord of the wizarding world. But he never left the country until his death. To be honest, some foreign magic families might not look up to Voldemort. Harry Potter, the title of savior is only widely circulated in Eagle Country. In some places in the foreign magic world, this name may not even have been heard of. But Thomas is different. The scope of the saint's activities in the global magic community at that time was so wide that he was well known to everyone. If Thomas initially approached Harry Potter because of his fame, he now appreciates Harry's qualities in the original play more. If Harry Potter was defeated by this small setback, then he would naturally not have a seat among the 13 seats of the Fatui. In the Gryffindor dormitory, Ronald looked at Harry who had a depressed look in front of him with some concern. Harry, are you okay? It's just a Malfoy. One failure is nothing. You can win it back in the future. With the awakening of your savior talent, you will surely become a powerful wizard like Headmaster Dumbledore in the future. Ronald became more and more excited as he spoke, as if he had already seen Harry Potter stepping on Malfoy. A wry smile appeared on Harry's face and he looked down at the notebook on the table. What a bullshit savior talent awakening, everything he had obtained was dependent on this notebook. Thank you, Ronald. I would like to be alone for a while, okay? Ronald's excited expression froze involuntarily. He then coughed twice awkwardly, nodded, and left the room. After hearing the wooden door close and making sure Ronald had left, Harry opened the notebook on the table and wrote on the blank space with a quill pen dipped in ink. Hello, Tom. The next second, a magical scene appeared, and words began to appear automatically on the notebook. Hello, Harry. I dueled with Malfoy today. Did you win, Harry? I lost to Malfoy, and he said in the duel that I betrayed Thomas, but I didn't. I just felt that something was wrong, and I couldn't explain it. I understand you, Harry, being misunderstood by your friends is a very painful thing. Perhaps, I can help you. Tell me your confusion and I will do my best to help you solve it. When Harry saw the words on the notebook, his eyes couldn't help but turn red. After that incident, all his former friends stayed away from him, and only Ronald stayed with him. Now in the dueling arena, he unconsciously started talking to the snake again and was mistaken by the students as the heir of Slytherin, but only he knew that he was innocent. He is now being ostracized by the whole school, and he doesn't want to implicate his only friend, but he has no other choice. This notebook had taught him a lot of knowledge before, and it might really contain a solution to the problem. Harry thought of this and waved the quill in his hand again. In today's duel, I had a conversation with a snake. This ability is very magical. It happened to me once before I entered Hogwarts. But everyone thought that this was the work of a dark wizard, that I was the heir of Slytherin, and that I wanted to completely eliminate the half-blood wizards and muggle-born wizards in Hogwarts. I don't know what to do. Voldemort's soul hidden in the notebook couldn't help but feel happy. During this period of time, he had already controlled Ginny's body and had a thorough understanding of everything that was happening in Hogwarts. Thomas Black, the guy that the so-called Pot called his friend, was a Slytherin through and through. He was even crazier than he was back then, and he was eager for power and strength. Even Dumbledore was very indulgent towards Black's behavior, which was something he couldn't understand. If it were Dumbledore in earlier years, he would have kicked Thomas Black out of Hogwarts long ago. Finally, Voldemort concluded that Dumbledore was old and had completely lost his former power, so he chose to compromise. To be honest, if there was a way to contact Thomas Blake, he would not have bothered to choose Pot as his current chess piece. P.S. The souls in Voldemort's Horcruxes cannot share information. Unless they are merged, he would not know that one of his main souls was destroyed by Thomas. In addition, regarding Voldemort's Horcruxes, it is not actually that the 7 souls are one and the memories are shared, but that the souls are divided into 7 parts, each of which represents a new life for Voldemort, retaining only the memories before the Horcruxes were made. But now that things have come to this, the plan can only go on. As long as the secret room is completely opened and I have accumulated enough magic power, I will be able to be completely resurrected. He believed that Amir Black would be easily captured by then, and would definitely kneel at his feet like his elders and become a Death Eater. He can also legitimately take over Thomas's team in Hogwarts, and then the entire Hogwarts will become a training base for Death Eaters. He will conquer the Eagle Kingdom and dominate the global magic world. The most urgent task is to speed up the process. Then words began to appear in the notebook. Harry, you are obsessed. Maybe you can think about the problem in a different way. Harry first looked at the handwriting on the notebook, and a look of joy appeared on his face. Sure enough, the notebook really had a way to solve the problem. Harry quickly picked up his quill and continued writing. How to change direction. Your friend, Thomas, isn't a Gryffindor, is he? Yes, he's a Slytherin. That's right. He is a Slytherin. What does a Slytherin value most? Power, profits, and fame. Pure blood supremacy has always been Slytherin's creed, and they can use all means to achieve their goals. Didn't you say before that your friend Thomas founded a society called the Fatui in order to guard against the unknown dangers in the Chamber of Secrets? And you are invited to join the top 13 seats. Chapter 74. Yes, that's right, but I refused because I had a bad feeling that I couldn't put into words. That's right. Harry, I understand. It is indeed like this. Thomas, your friend, is the heir of Slytherin. Harry looked at the handwriting on the notebook and was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly continued writing on the notebook with a quill. No, this is impossible. Thomas cannot be the heir of Slytherin. He what? Harry, he was a Slytherin, what was wrong with being the heir of Slytherin? One more thing, you haven't told me yet what your friend Thomas's last name is. Blake, Thomas Blake. Then you should also know that the Black family is famous for dark magic. You may not know much about the Black family's motto, black is always pure. As for what purity is, you can understand it by looking at the current wizarding world, pure blood wizards, half-blood wizards, and muggle wizards. After years of integration, the wizarding world has long been divided into 3 factions. The Black family, as one of the 28 sacred families, is an old noble family and is extremely honorable even among pure-blood wizards. Why do you think Thomas would look down on those half-blood and muggle wizards? Harry looked at the handwriting in the notebook, feeling a little irritated and conflicted. Although Thomas was his friend, for some reason, he seemed to agree with what appeared in the notebook. And there was no place to refute, no place to refute. Wait, there was one more, Harry thought as he hurriedly wrote it down in his notebook with a quill. Hermione, another friend of mine, is a Gryffindor. Her parents are both muggles, but Thomas still let Hermione join the 13th seat of Fatui. The notebook paused for 2 seconds, and then the words began to appear quickly again. That's right, Harry, Slytherins will do whatever it takes to achieve their goals. This was one of Thomas Blake's methods. He needed a muggle-born wizard to deceive the other wizards in Hogwarts. After all, there were seats for muggle wizards in the upper echelons of the Fatui, which meant that the organization was willing to receive a large number of muggle wizards. This way, even if Thomas committed a crime, no one would blame or think of him, right? With all due respect, your friend Hermione may have been chosen by Thomas Blake as a scapegoat. Think carefully about the other seats occupied by muggle wizards and half-blood wizards. Harry saw the words on the notebook and began to recall the senior members of the Fatui, Malfoy, Nott, Greengrass, Weasley, all of whom seemed to be members of the 28 sacred families of the Eagle Kingdom. By this calculation, Hermione is the only muggle-born wizard, and there is not even a half-blood wizard. A feeling of powerlessness swept over Harry's body. He no longer had the words to refute, and he slowly began to accept the meaning of the notebook. No, the others are all pure-blood wizards. That's right, Harry, the true heir of Slytherin is Thomas Black. But perhaps there is a way to save Thomas Blake. What method? Harry wrote hurriedly. In his heart, he had completely agreed with what the notebook said, and now he just wanted to pull Thomas out of the quagmire and back to the right path. As Thomas was his friend, he absolutely could not watch Thomas continue to degenerate. There is only one way, go to Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets. Heading to Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets? That's right, only when you reach Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets and completely close it can you stop Thomas Black's thoughts and get him back on the right track. But I don't know where the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets is. It's in a girl's bathroom on the 3rd floor. You'll need to find the exact location yourself. Just as Harry was thinking, the door suddenly opened and Ronald came back with a few chicken legs in his hands. Harry closed his notebook hastily without thinking. Eat something, Harry. I know it might be awkward for you to go to the canteen right now, but you don't have to eat. Ronald handed Harry 2 chicken legs and spoke. Thank you, Ronald, but I'm afraid we have more important things to do at the moment. Something more important? Pull Thomas back before he goes astray. I don't want my friend to become a dark wizard. Ronald couldn't help but frown after hearing what Harry said. What on the wrong path, what dark wizard? Harry was really starving to death. Harry took the chicken leg, took a few bites of it, and then strode out with Ronald. Hermione. So why are you looking for me? If you want to join the Fatui, you should go to Percy. He is the person in charge of initiation matters in Gryffindor. I'm very busy and I still have to sort out the information. Hermione closed the heavy book in her hand, looked at Harry and Ronald in front of her helplessly and said that sometimes she always felt like their parent. No. Not that, Hermione, listen to me, Thomas is in big trouble. Harry said anxiously. Big trouble? Who in Hogwarts would dare to cause trouble to Mr. Thomas? Harry, you worry too much. As Hermione was speaking, she was about to open the book and look through the information, but Harry snatched the book away from her. Harry, give it back to me, I'm doing something. Hermione said somewhat unhappily that since she joined the Fatui, her daily workload had been quite heavy, but it had also brought her some benefits, such as popularity. Many people started to talk to her, and more people gathered around her. Even senior students from other colleges were very enthusiastic towards her. She used to love reading so much that she could only be called a nerd, but now she is a role model for everyone and is called Miss Know-It-All. She likes the atmosphere of reading together. No, Hermione, you know that Thomas is the heir of Slytherin. He is using you to get rid of half-blood wizards and muggle-born wizards. When all these wizards are eliminated, you will be the next one. We have to close the secret room to prevent Thomas from going astray. Impossible. What? Two voices sounded at the same time, one from Hermione and the other from Ronald. If Hermione was just unhappy before, now she was extremely angry. She would not allow anyone to insult Mr. Thomas. Ronald was extremely shocked. He felt as if he had just been exposed to a terrible scandal. Fortunately, although Weasley was poor, he was also a pure blood, so he should be fine. Chapter 75. Please leave now, I need to rest, Hermione said in a cold tone. He snatched the book from Harry's hand and rushed them both out of the room. Harry looked at the closed door and sighed helplessly. It seems that we are the only ones who can save Thomas now. Us. Ronald looked around at the empty corridor, then pointed at himself in disbelief. Just you and I going to the secret room. Are you crazy, Harry? This is courting death. Forget it, Ronald. You go back to the dormitory. I'll go there by myself. No matter what, I will definitely close the secret room to save Thomas. Ronald sighed helplessly when he saw Harry's determination, then spread his hands and spoke. Forget it, let's go together, Harry. I'm worried about you being alone. Besides, if we close the Chamber of Secrets, we can definitely be heroes. Thank you, Ronald, for supporting me, Harry said a little excitedly. It's nothing, we are good brothers, Harry. On the other side, a faint blue light suddenly appeared on the ring in Thomas's hand while he was lying on the bed. Hermione texted. It seems that Harry and the others should have found Hermione, Thomas thought so, and stroked the ring with his finger. A blue light shot out and gradually formed the appearance of Hermione. This is also the new function he recently added to the ring, and the main reason is to allow everyone to communicate better. Hermione first performed a standard wizard salute to Thomas, then spoke respectfully. Mr. Thomas, Harry and Ronald just came to me and told me that you are the heir of Slytherin. They must close the Chamber of Secrets to prevent you from going astray. So you think I'm the heir of Slytherin, Hermione? No, you are not, my lord. We are all aware of your noble ideals. Yes, I am not the heir of Slytherin, Hermione. And thank you for telling me about this, Thomas said in a calm tone. When Hermione heard Thomas speak, the last bit of worry in her heart disappeared. To be honest, when Harry told her this, Hermione was indeed a little shaken, but she quickly put it behind her. Because she believed that Mr. Thomas would never do such a thing. Mr. Thomas was a very gentle person. As the call ended, the blue light disappeared. Thomas, who was originally sitting on the chair, also slowly stood up. Things seem to be getting interesting, Cooker can. Outside the girls' washroom on the third floor. Harry, are we really going in? Ronald said hesitantly. To be honest, he was scared. There were abandoned buildings all around, and it looked like the set of a horror movie. Of course, Ronald, we have to save Thomas. Ha, ha, Harry. What's wrong, Ronald? You have, behind you. Hello. Ah. X2 Harry and Ronald screamed and hugged each other, looking at the ghost floating in the air in horror. Wait, she's wearing a Hogwarts uniform. Harry discovered the key and let go of Ronald. He was suddenly distracted by the atmosphere created by Ronald. If he thought about it carefully, Hogwarts was full of ghosts. What's there to be afraid of ghosts? Hello. My name is Harry Potter. Oh, Harry, nice to meet you. You can call me Myrtle, Myrtle said as she floated over to Harry and smiled. I want to go to the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets. Do you know where it is? Harry said a little nervously. Although he was not afraid, it was inevitable that he would feel uncomfortable having a ghost floating around him in the middle of the night. I'm sorry, but I don't know where the Chamber of Secrets is, Harry. Well, can I ask you how you died? It may be offensive, but I still want to know. Harry said bravely that he had given it his all to save Thomas. I don't know. I was sitting in that single room at the time. Myrtle said as she pointed to an abandoned toilet cubicle. I was hiding because Olive Hornby laughed at me for wearing glasses. I was crying and then I heard someone come in. Who's coming in, Myrtle? I don't know, woo woo woo. I was very angry at the time. Woo woo woo. I told them to get out. PQ. Dot. Woo woo woo. Woo woo woo. PQ. Dot. They seem to have. Woohoo. Their own unique language. PQ. Dot. It was like I created it myself. I recognized the voice and it sounded like a boy, so I opened the door and told him to get lost. The last thing I remember seeing was a pair of giant yellow eyes, right there in that tank. And then I died, weev. After saying the last sentence, Myrtle's emotions seemed to have completely collapsed and she burst into tears. Harry sighed helplessly, because he knew that if he continued asking, he would not get anything out of it. At this moment, Ronald suddenly spoke. Harry, that strange language before, could it be the Parseltongue accent? Because snakes' eyes are also yellow, the symbol of Slytherin is the snake, and looking directly into a basilisk's eyes will kill you. I heard someone talk about it when I went to the cafeteria to eat before. Yes, that's definitely the case, Harry said excitedly. Harry went forward to look for the mechanism, and sure enough, he touched another snake-shaped symbol at the faucet. Say something, Harry. Say something in Parseltongue, Ronald said excitedly. Harry nodded, then looked at the table and spoke. Plus number. Accompanied by a loud roar, the originally circular sink split directly, and the side facing Harry and Ronald sank directly. Harry, we go down. Ah. All right. A few minutes later, another figure appeared here. Oh, someone's here again. It's really lively today. Silence spell. A green light shot out from Thomas's wand and hit Myrtle directly. Weev. Sorry, I like quiet. As Thomas spoke, he turned directly to the mirror and used Parseltongue to give instructions to the sink. The entrance to the secret room soon appeared before my eyes. Myrtle, who was standing by, stared with her eyes wide open. She didn't understand why everyone knew this language. Could it be that in the decades since she died, it had become the common language of the outside world? Unfortunately, Thomas had cast a silencing spell on her and she couldn't speak. After one day, the spell will be broken. After Thomas said this, he jumped directly into the secret room without looking back. He couldn't let Harry kill the basilisk as in the original show, because he had a great use for the basilisk. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.